And we are live. Wow, this has been 6 months in the works, and this is our very first Flutteristas conference. I'm so excited.
It is
Hi,
so
Stef. Welcome.
exciting. Hi, it's so exciting to be here.
So I should probably introduce myself. I am Danielle Cox, and I am one of the current organizers of the Flutteristas, and we are a group of women and non-binary folk that are enthusiastic about Flutter. We were started by Emily Fortuna back in the day, and when she had to leave, Steph and I took over. And why don't you introduce yourself, Steph?
I'm Stephanie Patterson. I'm from Portland, Oregon, and as Danielle said, we co-organize the Flutteristas, and it is so exciting to be here.
That's great. Now, we should probably do a little bit of the busy work here. Steph, can you tell us the rules for this broadcast?
Yes. The main thing is be nice. Don't make any comments that are inflammatory or rude, or you'll be excluded. And just be here to have fun and be supportive.
That's amazing. Yes. And one of the questions that upcoming, I'm going to show a video of who the Flutteristas kind of are, a little project I did. So if Simon, if you could get that ready, that would be good. And in the meantime, tell us about this conference, Steph. How would you describe it?
It is a time for Flutteristas to present to the world a variety of different topics. And we have a lot of great sponsors, and we're going to be seeing those listed here shortly. And each, we have 4 parts. And you don't have to leave your YouTube space or anything like that. We're going to take care of all that transition. And we've got different hosts and co-hosts for each of those parts. And we have an amazing team behind the scenes from the Flutter community. I personally want to thank Google as well as the Flutter community for all of their support. And it's going to be amazing. And one of our first speakers is actually here to join us very soon. Or sorry, co-host for Danielle. Danielle's going to be hosting this first part. I'm hosting the second, and Danielle third, and I'm back at the fourth. But I'll be popping in here and there.
Okay, great. All right. Well, you know, a lot of people wonder what Flutteristas are, and I just kind of had a little bit of a plan to put something together and called out for help from people and got it. And I've got a little video I'd like to show you.
Everyone, I am Mahtab and I'm a Flutterista.
Hi, I'm Anna from Ukraine. I'm senior Flutter developer and Flutterista.
I'm Stef and I'm a Flutterista.
Hola, soy Valeria y soy Flutterista.
Hi, I'm Stacey Devono and I'm a Flutterista.
Hola, desde Perú, soy Melissa y soy Flutterista.
I am Dhruva Shastri.
Hello, Neitra Maureen.
Oi galera, meu nome é Jéssica.
Maru naam Thakkar Khushbu chhe.
Hi, my name's Shayna.
And together we're Flutteristas.
That was fantastic.
Oh, thank you. And it gives you an idea that we're from all over the world, and we're all different, come from different places, but we are also united as being Flutteristas, and it's pretty amazing. One thing about a conference like this, though, Steph, is that we really can't do it by ourselves. And I think we have a lot of sponsors. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. One of the primary sponsors is Google. We want to thank them as well as the Flutter community. They have been very supportive. They're here helping us today. RayWenderlich.com is also offering several prizes for activities we're going to be having come up. We have, as you can see, there's a lot of other ones. We have Andrea O'Reilly, the At Company Stream, Riot Training, and then we have a whole other large list there. We couldn't be doing this without all of our sponsors. So thank you so much for your contributions. And everyone is going to have a blast. And the people who win the prizes are even going to be happier, because I heard we have dashes. As you can see over here, okay, where is it? Right there, I have a dash. And Dash is a hot commodity all around the world. And so there are some prizes. So you got to stick around and do the activities. So that'll only be available for people who are watching live when we're doing the activities. But anyway, back to you.
And that's actually, that's an amazing part. And another part of how we can't do this by ourselves is I'm going to surprise Simon here and ask him if he can put himself on stage because we've got support from the Flutter community here. And thank you so much, Simon.
Hi, Simon.
So Simon's actually talking in my ear here and letting me know what's coming up and letting me know when we can do things and pretty much making it all run. They volunteered their YouTube channel and their StreamYard and stuff to make it happen. So thank you very much, Simon. We appreciate that. Can you tell us a little bit about how we're doing this? It's a little bit different because we've got it in different parts. Can you tell us how that's going to work?
So just because we've done this before, just because it's so long, it makes sense to break it up into segments, and that way people can set reminders just for the area of the conference that they're kind of interested in. It also means that later on that if we want to break up the video, we do lose live comments, I'm afraid. So we'll try and bring up your comments on screen during the stream. And hopefully everyone has a good time, but you don't have to worry. Stick with part 1 and it'll autoplay part 2 and part 3 and part 4 if you want to stick around. But we recommend you get some breaks and some rest, and we'll take you through that as we go. It's not a 12 hours non-stop. We'll have breaks.
Well, thank you, Simon. Like I said, we couldn't do it without you, and I appreciate you coming on here.
You're welcome.
And that's a good point. We should talk about why we're having such a long conference. And
I'll see you later.
All right, thanks, Simon. We were talking about why we would have such a long conference. We were trying to figure out if we wanted to do it over days or how we wanted to do it. And really, in discussing it, because we are such an international group, we decided it would be better to have it as one long one where everybody can be awake and see parts of it live at the same time. And that's kind of how we came up with that. And I don't know, anything you want to say on that stuff?
I had something and my brain just went completely blank because I was looking at the comments that people are putting, and Dash is a really hot commodity. Yes, it's really awesome. We have people from all around the world that are going to be presenting, and it is amazing the number of time zones. Just the Flutteristas. If I go to send a message in our Slack and I want to send it to the channel, I get notified we've got 15 different time zones, and it is amazing. And our community is continuing to grow. And I am so excited to hear all of our presenters, and I hope everybody else likes it as much.
Well, that's awesome. And I guess that's a great time to kind of introduce our youngest Flutterista, Radhika, who's going to be co-hosting with me on part 2. So Radhika, if you could come up to the stage, that'd be wonderful.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, Radhika. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi. Okay, so I'm Radhika Goswami from India, and I'm also a Flutter developer. And I also have a YouTube channel known as Divine Coding. And I also have one course of Flutter and Dart. That's it. And I'm also going to be co-hosting with Daniel.
That's awesome. Now, I guess I have a question for you. I'll put you on the spot because I know I wouldn't ask Steph this question, but how old are you?
I'm 16 now, but my birthday is coming soon.
Okay, good. Well, we won't be able to call you the 16-year-old Flutterista for very much longer then. That's pretty amazing. All right. Well, why don't you hang out with us, and pretty soon we're going to start on with part 1, and that'll be good. I'm so excited, and I have to say that with everything we've done, we've had people that have stepped up, and Flutteristas in the community that have helped, and people in the broader community that have stepped in whenever we've asked for help. And it's been an amazing thing. And I really look forward to sharing this conference with everybody. And I think you'll enjoy it. And I think it'll be a lot of fun.
One thing I'd like to say is we've got Sarah that's going to be coming on and talking about all of our activities. Sarah, can you join us?
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, we have a lot of activities lined up for you today. I will just direct you to the flutteristas.org/activities and prizes page to see the details. But in particular, right now, the @Sun Company's scavenger hunt has begun. The way this works is they have created a list of questions, and they are about the talks that are going on. So if you watch the talks, you can find the answers to the scavenger hunt questions. And then if you submit it in time, you'll be eligible for some cool prizes that you can read about on that page. So yeah, I hope you'll join us for the other activities as well. I just wanted to make sure that people were aware of this now because it's starting now. Yes.
Thanks, Sarah.
Oh, thanks, Sarah. Well, I think it's time to send Stef off, and we're going to start the day. So thank you, Stef. I'll see you in a little bit later.
I'll see you a little bit later. Bye.
All right. Thanks. We need to have Radhika up on stage, and we're going to talk about video one. So that's a little bit of behind the scenes for everybody. That was me talking to our producer and going about how we're doing it. But what do we have coming up first, Radhika?
So our first speaker is going to be Katarina, and she will be taking us on a deep dive into streams. Sound interesting?
Wow, streams are something I think a lot of people are often thinking are too difficult or too weird or too mysterious, and so I'm really looking forward to a deep dive into it. So, Katarina, why don't you take the stage?
Hi everyone, I am Katarina Sherement. I am Google developer expert in Flutter and Dart. I also run my own company, which is called FutureWare, where I consult companies and startups about Flutter development, architecture, testing, and more. And today we are going to talk about streams. Let's begin. This is an agenda of today's talk. We talk about what is stream and why do we need to use stream. We also talk about different types of streams and how to create them. Afterwards, we see how we can get updates from the stream and also display them on the UI. We have a look on different operations that we can perform on stream. And also, we discuss one important topic, which is testing. And we'll see how we can test our streams using widget testing and unit testing. So, what is a stream? Stream is an asynchronous sequence of data that can return none or many values over a time. Why do we need stream? Where we can use it? One of the examples, it comes from official documentation. We might need stream when we need to read from the file. And file has an open read method, which returns a stream that provides the data in the file as chunks of bytes. And it's one of the examples. Another example, when we implement application where we need to display real-time updates. And for example, if you use Firebase Firestore, you also need to work with streams if you are planning to listen to collection or document updates. Another example, if you implement video streaming application and camera controller has start image stream that starts streaming images, and in this case you will also need to work with streams. In all these examples, streams were created for you, and you just need to use them, etc. But what if you'd like to create your own stream, and what if you'd like to manipulate with the stream? And let's see how we can do this. So I have a simple example, which is called counter application. This application is created for you automatically, basically, when you create any Flutter application. But this time, we try to use streams to implement counter application. And for this, we will need two classes. First one is a counter stream view model. It's a class where we will have all our business logic. And another one is a counter stream example. It's going to be our view where which we use to implement our widgets. let's see what our counter and stream view model has. First of all, to work with streams, we need to create a counter and stream controller. And the stream controller helps us to manipulate stream, and it can add data, errors, or done events to the stream. Afterwards, we create our counter stream. And to create our counter stream, we just need to call stream parameter of our counter stream controller. Afterwards, here we initialize our counter with 0 value. It's our initial value. And by the way, our counter stream, it's an output. We just can read values from this stream and display it somewhere. And we cannot write any data to counter stream. To write something, we need to use counter stream controller. And we also have here counter stream view model constructor, where we emit our first value in counter stream. And for this, we call add method of counter stream controller. And here we specify our value, which is counter, and which is 0 here. We also have increment counter method, where we increase our counter by 1, and also emit updated value by adding it to the stream. Again, we use add method of counter stream controller. Let's see what we have on the UI. Here we create our instance, counter stream view model, which we can use afterwards. We also have increment button. It's floating action button. And basically, when user presses on floating action button, we call increment counter method. And that's it from here. And what is the difference from the app that was created automatically for us, counter, and with streams? First difference that you might notice that it's a stateless widget, because we don't need to call setState anymore, and we can get updates from stream and display it on the UI using Stream Builder widget. And Stream Builder widget has 2 parameters, stream and builder. Here we specify our stream that we are planning to listen to. It's a counter stream. And we also have builder method. And builder method has context parameter and also snapshot. And here we check if our snapshot has error. For example, error occurred when we were working with streams, we display error message. And if our snapshot has data, we display this counter value. And here you can see when we press plus, our counter is increased. And builder method called every time when our stream has new value. And let's put breakpoint here and see how we get updates on the UI. So as you see, once I've pressed plus button, our builder method was called with new data, and you can see that it's 5 already. In our example, in our emulator, we still have 4, but Snapshot has already received 5, and we just rebuilt our UI. And you can also see that our Snapshot has another parameter, which is called connection state. And right now it's active because we have active subscription to the stream and we get value. Connection state can also be waiting when no data was received from the stream. And sometimes in application you might check if connection state is waiting, and you can show progress indicator, for example. And it can be also none, and also I think closed or done when our stream is closed. So let's continue with debug. And as I said, every time when we press plus button, our widget gets rebuilt. In applications, sometimes we need to listen to stream from different places and to have many subscriptions. And let's see what happens if we try to listen to our stream again. And just for simplicity, we'll use a stream builder. It's the same as previous widget, and we just try to listen again and to get another counter value below what we already have. Let's save our changes. And we can also delete breakpoint. And we see that we have exception here. Stream has already been listened to. So basically, what happens here? And why it's like this? So basically, our stream controller, when we create our stream, here it's a single subscription stream. And it means that it can only have one subscriber. But what if we need more subscribers? If we need to listen to our stream in different part of the UI and also in some business logic? And let's see how we can fix it. For this, I have different example, actually. And let's see. So to create another type of stream, which is called broadcast, what we need, it just, when we create our stream controller, we can use factory constructor broadcast, and afterwards we can, again, as we did it before, create our stream. But it's going to be a different stream. It's going to be broadcast stream. And it means that this stream can have many subscribers. So let's see. Here's another example. And basically it's the same counter, but we just have more buttons here. Let's uncomment our stream builder here and hot reload our application. And now we have two counters here, and we just press plus button, and we see that our counter increases. So let's summarize what we learned so far. We know that there are two types of streams. It's a single subscription stream that can have only one subscriber, and broadcast stream that can have multiple subscribers. And so how to create broadcast stream? We just use factory constructor on stream controller, and afterwards we use parameter stream to create our stream. And to get updates on the UI, we can use stream builder widget. Build every time we get new value from the stream. So, okay, in this example, we can get updates from stream on the UI. And every time we press plus button, we can see logs here on the UI. But what happens if we need, for example, listen to the stream in business logic and we don't need to display any data on the UI? For this, our stream, counter stream, has listen method, which adds a stream subscription and has on data, on error, and on done events. And basically, every time we get new value from stream, this callback is called on data and we print it in the console. And you might see here that we get some logs, print logs, with our counter here. And every time we press plus button, we can see logs here that we get updates here as well. You saw that our stream controller has error, that we can check that it has error or not, and also display error message. And here we have on error callback. But how to add error to the stream if something happens? For this, we have our stream controller has add error method where we can add error that we want to add to our stream. And let's see how it works. Our UI has an extra floating action button which calls emit error method, our counter broadcast stream view model, and this uses add error method to add error in the stream. Let's add error and see what happens. So basically we can see that on the UI our snapshot has error if statement happened, therefore we display this text, and also in our logs our on error handler was called as well. So so far we learned that we can add different events to the stream controller. We can add value as counter here, and we also can add error to our stream. Now let's see how we can test all this logic that we have. And I'm going to start with widget test at the beginning. And I'm also planning to show how to test our single subscription example. Let's begin. Here we create our test case, counter increment smoke test, and it's going to be widget test. Therefore, we built our counter stream example. Here we call a pump widget of tester to pump our screen here. Afterwards, we verify that our counter starts at 0. Therefore, we call expect, and we check that our 0 value is present on the UI and it finds one widget. I won't talk deeply about widget testing and Flutter testing, and it's a kind of different topic from what I'm talking here, and I expect that you know some basics of Flutter testing, widget testing and unit testing. Afterwards, I tap plus button to increment our counter here, And for this, I use tester tab method and find our plus button by icon, because floating action button uses icon add. Afterwards, you remember that when we increment our counter, we add this to the stream, and our stream builder needs to rebuild UI, and therefore I call tester pump method, which schedules a frame and triggers a rebuild of the widgets. And afterwards, I check, as here, that it doesn't find any more 0 text, and I use the matcher finds nothing. And I expect that our current counter is 0, and I use find text method, and also matcher finds one widget to check that only one widget with count 1 is present. Afterwards, I just repeat everything that I've done before. Basically, I tap on plus button again, and also schedule a frame to rebuild UI, and check that it doesn't find any more 1 text, and it's going to be 2, and it also finds 1 widget. Let's run our test and see whether it's successful, whether it's green. Yes, so our counter increment smoke test works correctly. Now let's see, in some application you just need to test business logic, and for example you don't need to test UI, as we did this in widget testing. You don't need to test widgets, but you just need to test business logic, whether you use block or provider, etc. And let's see how we can test just our counter stream view model, this one, just with unit tests. I just remind you a logic of counter stream view model. Here we create our counter stream controller, and we have getter for our counter stream. So in our constructor, we emit the first value, and which is initialized with 0 here. And we also have just a simple increment counter method, which increases our counter and emits it in our stream by using add method of counter stream controller. So here at the beginning in our unit test, so we have a test case which has description stream emits increment and counter, and here we create instance of our counter stream view model, and afterwards we use expect later to subscribe to our counter stream, and also we use matcher emits in order, and we are going to test that it will emit at the beginning 0, afterwards 1, 2, 3, etc. And so what is the difference between expect later and expect that we saw in previous example? Expect later returns a future that completes when the matcher has finished matching. And afterwards, we call increment counter 3 times, and just increment our and we just expect that our counter stream will emit values in this order that we wanted to have. And let's check whether we are testing correctly. 0 will be emitted from constructor, here the first value, and other values will be emitted when we call increment counter a few times. And let's run our test to see whether this test is successful and everything works as expected. Yes, so our test is correct and everything works as expected. And testing actually it's very important topic because with testing you can guarantee that your app satisfies quality and everything works as you expect to work. And testing it's actually very good topic and very important topic in production application because only with tests you can guarantee that your app works as expected. Now let's talk about some cool features that we can do to work with stream and how to transform one stream to another one. For this, let's move to Dartpad. And here you can see that we have another example how we can create our stream. And for this, we can create method, generate n numbers, and it returns stream, and it has a sync asterisk keyword, and it means that our function will return a bunch of values, and we use yield keyword to return these values. And the difference between yield and return that yield emits value and it doesn't end the function. It's a first method that we have, and let's run our code, and we see that we here generate numbers 10, and we have a for loop where we just emit values from 0 to 10. And also we have listen method here. We call listen method to add subscription to our stream, and afterwards we just print values to the console. And I also have here another method that just emits two sentences. So here we have generate sentences, and again we have methods that return stream and have async keyword, and it yields two sentences, hello world, and this is an example sentence. Let's see what can be done with streams and what cool operations we can perform on this. Stream has a property which is first, and it returns a first value from the stream. And here we call generate and numbers method, and we just print the first value. And we have to await because first returns future. Let's go to the next example. Imagine that we need to return the last value of the stream, and for this we can call last property of the stream, and we see that 9 was printed in the console. Sometimes we just need to get first n values from the stream, and for this we can call take method and specify how many values we'd like to listen to, and afterwards we just use listen method to add stream subscription and print to the console, and we can see that we just received first 5 values from the stream. Another useful method that you can use, it's map, and map helps us transform one stream to another stream. And here we transform stream of int. We know that generate n numbers returns stream of int, and afterwards we call map and specify what type of stream we'd like to have, and in our case is a stream of strings. And here we transform our int value to a string, and it might be useful when, for example, you get the real-time updates from backend or server. One of the examples is Firestore or real-time database, and you'd like to transform data that you receive from server to something that you'd like to some models that you'd like to display on the UI, because I think you don't want to expose some Firebase models on your UI. Another task that we are going to have a look at, for example, we need to transform our sentences into a stream of words. And for this, we can use expand method, and convert function will transform each element of the stream into a sequence of elements. So you remember that our generate sentences, it is hello world sentence, and this is an example sentence. And let's see what happens here. Basically, you can see that two sentences, two events were transformed to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 events, and we could listen to words and print to the console. If you have a look at stream documentation, you might notice that there are map method that we used before, and I see expand method, and there is also async map and async expand methods. What is the difference? Let's say in our examples. So basically the difference is that async expand and async map allows body to be asynchronous functions. And to see this in the example, let's have a look how async map behaves here. So basically, again, we have this generate and numbers stream, and it's stream of ints, and we'd like to convert it to stream of strings. But our body has asynchronous call, asynchronous function, and just for an example, I put some delay here, 1 second, and afterwards I just return string value. So basically async map allows us to use async calls and use await in the body. Now let's have a look to async expand. And again, we transform our sentences that we had before, and we transform them into a sequence of asynchronous events. Let's run. And as you can see, that I can use async asterisk keyword here, and I can yield this word. So basically, I use async code in the body. Sometimes you might need to filter out some values from your stream. And the next example shows us how we can filter out odd numbers. Let's run this code. And we can use where function, where we specify which values we'd like to emit from the stream. And here we just emit even values, values that satisfy this check. So if we can divide value by 2, so we just emit this value. And here you can see in the console that we have all even numbers from this method. Let's have a look at another example. Imagine that you need to find sum of numbers, and for this you can use fold method, and it combines sequence of values. Let's see what happens here. I put some print statements that we understand how this fold method works. So basically it returns also a future, and once it's completed, we print this value to the console. Let's run it. So our fold method has initial value it's 0, and in our callback we get previous and current value. And we can see that our first value, previous, was 0. I think it's initial value. And current value, it was a 0 from generate a numbers stream. And it just summarizes these numbers and runs this callback again. And in this callback already, previous was 0, but the next value from stream was 1. And it summarized it and ran this callback again. And previous was already 1, and current was the next value that was emitted from the stream. And so basically, previous value for every callback is sum of previous and current from previous and from previous, but initial value is 0, and you can see how we got sum of numbers from this stream. There are actually more methods and that you can use with streams, and there are different transformers, and you can also combine some streams together, and there is also very powerful async package that you can have a look at, but unfortunately we don't have so many time for this presentation. Therefore, let's make a wrap up. So today we talked about what is stream and why do we need stream. Also, we talked about different types of stream. There is a single subscription and broadcast stream. We had a look how we can create stream using stream controller and also using method which yields values. Also, we saw how we can get updates from stream using stream builder and also listen to a stream. And we had a look at some operations on stream, but this topic is really huge, and you can have a look by yourself. And also, we discussed about testing and specifically widget testing and unit testing when we have streams. And thank you. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And if you have some specific questions about stream, feel free to ask me in Twitter.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Katarina. That was amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was really amazing, and we hope that people who are watching would have now learned what are types and the principles of using streams, operations, and how to process them. And they would also have learned how you can test even streams too. So it was really great.
Absolutely. And one other thing I would like to kind of point out for Katarina, thank you so much for showing us testing. I mean, we've got a whole talk with Pooja coming up, which is going to be amazing. But most people don't include that as part of their building up a project. So that was absolutely incredible. We love it. Now, Radhika, you have a YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, it's Divine Coding.
Great. Can we show that on screen, Simon?
Yeah.
Maybe. All right. Oh, yeah. There we go. All right. So anybody that's interested, I would encourage you to check it out. I mean, for now she is still 16 and she's already producing top-notch content. So thank you for that, Radhika.
Thank you so much. I hope you will find it useful too. So
absolutely.
Check it out.
Absolutely. I think everybody should. Our next talk is I'd probably prefer you to pronounce her name, Radhika, because
I'm
not very good at that.
So our next speaker, is going to be Anagha Sivadas. She is also Summer 21 intern at Google and also a Flutter developer. And she will be talking about Adobe XD for Flutter developers.
Oh, that's amazing. I've heard great things about Adobe XD ever since I saw the first kind of public showing of that. So that's amazing. I look forward to seeing this talk. And I guess with that, Anagha, the floor is yours.
I'm Anagha Sivadas, and I'm a third year computer science and engineering student at Model Engineering College, Kochi, which is in India. I'll also be interning at Google this summer as an application engineering intern. So I'm very excited to be speaking at the Flutteristas conference, and let's get started. So this is what we'll be covering today. We'll be talking mainly about XD2Flutter plugin and why XD2Flutter is used, some of the installations that are required, and we'll be going through a small demo of the whole thing, and I'll also be discussing some of the limitations of this plugin. So before we get into the details of the plugin, let's see a small story of John and Steve. So John is an amazing designer and Steve is a really good developer, and they thought they'll make a great team to compete in this hackathon that was happening. So they had a great idea, and John started working on the design part of the project. After making the prototype, he handed it over to Steve so that he could work on the UI, and this is called a design handoff. So after the developer had made everything, made the UI, he showed it to John, but John was not happy with the way the UI turned out to be. According to John, John said that, "Hey Steve, this isn't as perfect as the design that I handed over to you." Steve said, "Yeah, I know, I had to do some compromises because we don't have much time left. All my time was getting spent on developing the UI while we haven't yet started implementing the functionality of the project yet." But then John was like, no, Steve, I agree to your point, but UI is something that the judges will notice immediately. So that's what should impress them. We should definitely focus on that. But then Steve was like, no, we haven't even started the functionalities, and we only have like 5 hours left for the project demo to begin. As you could see, they were not ready to compromise on their part, and as you might have guessed, they didn't win the hackathon. So what could have saved them from such a situation? That's right, XD2Flutter plugin. So XD2Flutter is this amazing plugin, official plugin by Adobe and Flutter, which helps to bridge this gap between designers and developers. So these are all the reasons why you should use XD2Flutter. It speeds up the front-end coding and it increases your productivity. It also removes the guesswork and discrepancies that are usually associated with front-end coding. It also gives you a nice responsive working code if you use the latest version of the plugin, and it's really easy to use as you will be able to see in the demo. So these are some of the installations that you need to do if you want to follow along to my demo. So you need to install Adobe XD, and if you browse the plugins, if you search for Flutter, you'll be able to see all of these options available to you, but you need to choose this one, that is XD2Flutter plugin, and install it. So next you need to head over to pub.dev, and you'll be able to find this package if you search for Adobe XD. Just make sure that you have a verified publisher of adobe.com under this section. And if you go to the installing tab, you'll be able to see all the steps that are needed to install this package. So as you can see, you need to depend on it, you need to install it, and also you need to import it so that you can start working on this project. So this is a small sneak peek into what we'll be making. I'll be designing this on Adobe XD, and also I'll be converting, exporting it into code on Flutter, and I'll be running it on my mobile. So here you can see VS Code. This is the actual, this is the normal code that you will be generating if you start a new project. Just so that we could save time, I've already started running the project, and you can see my phone screen here. So this is the default project, as you might already know, and I've made a small change in this. I've actually added Adobe XD under the dependencies, as we just saw on the previous slide. And I've also added a path to our assets, but currently we see a yellow squiggly line here. This is because we don't have the assets folder here yet, but after exporting, this should just work fine. So yeah, let's get to designing. So as you can see in Adobe XD, you will be able to use any custom size you want or any size that is already available here. So I'm going to use a mobile screen. All these options are available to you, but I'll be using Google Pixel 5. Do bear with me since my system is slow. So yeah, let me first take a text tool and let's write some text maybe. How about the official hashtag of Flutteristas.conf? Yay, and are you excited? Are you excited? Please let me know in the comments. And how about we add in some pictures? So if you want to add images to XD, you just need to drag and drop, which is so cool. So these images are all made by our amazing Flutteristas. So you need to give an export name in order to be exported correctly. So I'm making this as logo. The next image would be our beloved dash. This should work just fine, and I'll name it as dash. The last image, let me move this to back. Oops. I think I'll be happy with okay. I think I'll be happy with this design, I should say. Yeah. So the last thing you need to do after you design is you need to give a project path. So I'll be choosing the repository that we just saw, the Flutter project, and we need to do another naming. So yeah, now that everything has been named, everything is ready, and we also have a Flutter project folder. We can export all widgets. Let's see if something has happened. Yay, so there's a new Dart file, as you can see, with new code that has been generated. Wow, we have this much of code that has been generated. As you can see, you have all the asset images, you have our text that we just wrote, we have everything here. So let's incorporate this inside our main file. So I'm just importing this file that we just got, and instead of my home page, I'll make it as Google Pixel 51, which is our class function. So yeah, this should work. But before that, we also need to bring in all our assets into Flutter project. So let's export all images. And yay, now we can see all the assets in here. We have all 3 images that we just used in our design. And I'm gonna hit save for this main function. And yeah, now that everything is done, this should work. So as I already told you, because I didn't want you guys to wait, I already have my phone screen here. So this is what it looks like currently. So when I hit on hot restart, let's try to hot restart it. So let's see if it works. Yay, it works. So this is the generated, this is the app that we just made using the generated code. Let's try and make some changes in XD. So maybe I'll just change the color of the text. So I've changed the color. Let's export all widgets, and this might have changed some of the code here. Now let's see if hot reload works. So I'm gonna click on hot reload. So it's performing hot reload. Let's see. Yay, the color has been changed. So as you can see, this was a super easy way to implement your, to convert your designs to working code. So yeah, that was the presentation. I'm sorry, that was the demo. So now that the demo is over, let's get to some of the limitations of this plugin. So even though this plugin is great, we still have some known issues, like if you use a flipped image in your XD, it might not work correctly in Flutter. Also, there are some unsupported features like blurred images or component states and layout padding, stacks, etc. Also, when you're using multi-select, you might have already noticed that if you select just one element, you'll be able to copy the selected widget's code and copy it into your IDE. But if you're selecting multiple elements, that option just simply disappears. So currently, Adobe does not support, this plugin does not support multi-select, but Adobe has said that they're working on it, so we might get that in future. Also, I should warn you about the fonts and assets export. As we just saw, we need to be a little bit careful when we're dealing with assets. We need to say the image export name, and we need to specify the fonts in Flutter that we use in XD. So all that things you need to keep an eye on. So finally, I would say that this is a great tool, and even though it has certain limitations, it can still speed up your coding by a great deal. So it's a great idea to, after generating the code, you should definitely go through the code once or twice. You could even optimize your code. And yeah, so here is what we learned. We learned about XD to Flutter plugin. We saw why we need this plugin. We saw the prerequisites, some of the installations that are required. We went over a small demo, and then we also discussed some of the limitations of this plugin. So that's it from me. Thank you so much.
Wow.
Thank you, Anagha. It was really great.
That was amazing. Absolutely, yes. And that's one of the things I love about Flutter is the tooling and how official tools are there, but also these other companies come up with things with plugins and how it all works together. I think that's really neat. But for our next thing,
and Daniel,
go ahead.
And Daniel, did you see our event has just been started and have been filled with such amazing experience?
Absolutely, I agree, Radhika. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Absolutely, and I hope people stay around for the rest of it. Now I think we want to bring Kamal onto stage. Hey, Kamal.
Hey, Danielle. Hey, Radhika. How are you guys doing?
We're doing amazing. Radhika's telling me that the Flutter scene in India is really happening. How about that, Kamal?
Indeed. It is kind of overwhelming response, and the kind of interest people show towards Flutter is so much. And every day my inbox, all my social media is flooded asking, how can I contribute? Can you help me with this? How do I get connected with the community? So people are welcoming Flutter, and I think the product speaks for itself. So happy to be a part of this community and the tool as well.
Absolutely. Well, you prepared a little video with some of our Flutteristas there in India. Can you tell us how it came about?
Yes. So as I mentioned you, I could see a lot of people were interested in Flutter, and they were doing amazing work, whether it could be in terms of articles, writing articles, or creating apps. But I couldn't see anybody getting showcased in the limelight. So everything was getting hidden, getting their work done, and it was all happening in the background. So I thought, okay, no, this is the time that we have to showcase people that there are amazing talent, not only in India, all over the world, that has to be showcased. And I think Flutterista conference was one such podium to give me this opportunity to showcase it. So I'm really glad, and something that I could come up with and give it back to the community.
That's really nice. How long have you been a Flutterista, Kamal?
From the time the Flutterista, I mean, it has been like 2019 beginning. That's when I really started into Flutter, because I saw there were no women developers on YouTube. I was like wondering, why is that someone scared of Flutter? I said, let's break the stereotype. I'll be the first one to let's start the YouTube and see how it goes. And that's how my journey into Flutter started. And definitely do watch. There's a talk of mine where it shows the journey, how I started Flutter and how things are going. And now it's more into community building. So stay tuned for that as well.
That's great. And Radhika, you were telling me about how you became a Flutterista. Do you want to say something about that?
Yeah. So so whenever I was making some YouTube video or creating my course, I tagged the Flutter community and Flutter members. So one day Nilay ma'am approached me saying that you are doing great. You should also join Flutteristas community. So that time I wasn't knowing about it. So it's my first Slack group that I ever joined.
That's amazing.
And then, yeah. And then you have also invited me in the Slack. I messaged you in Twitter, email. And that's where I got to meet such amazing people.
That's a great point. People that Flutteristas, there's lots of people watching that are across the Flutter community, but Flutteristas who are female or non-binary and obviously care about Flutter because you're watching this. If you're interested in joining, you can email flutteristas@gmail.com, and we'll have that up later too. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and take a look at the video that Kamal's prepared for us.
Yeah.
I'm Radhika Goswami and I have started learning Flutter a year recently. And I have to say that Flutter is just awesome to pick up, and it can be a turning point in your career as it was for me. Flutter makes you multi-platform hero. It's like you have 6 infinity stones in your hand. And when I know that, I decided to share. And now my teaching has helped 95,000 plus students around the world to learn Flutter with ease. And to give more to the Flutter community, I also started to create my own complete Flutter course, which made me instructor at Udemy of 8,550 plus students. And I have discovered that Flutter has endless opportunity, so I highly recommend you to learn Flutter as it's easy to learn and can be a game changer in your life. And Flutter community is very supportive. Each member of the community is ready to help you. So we welcome you.
Hi Flutter devs. I am Ashita. I always wanted to undertake mobile app development, which led me to Flutter. And since then, there has been no looking back. The sheer amount of energy and helpful nature of Flutter community members is what made me love it even more. I was also fortunate enough to give back to our community via fluttergems.dev, which is a curated package guide categorizing more than 2,500 plus Dart and Flutter packages, and has been loved and appreciated by more than 60,000 plus Flutter developers across the globe. To summarize my life after learning Flutter and joining the community, it's been awesome. Bye-bye.
Hi to all the new Flutteristas out there. I'm Akanksha Singh, master student from Delhi, India. I started learning Flutter in December 2019, and getting started with Flutter has been a great decision for me. Fell in love since day one. I like how easy it is to get started thanks to Flutter documentation and all the awesome content creators on different platforms like YouTube. The best thing is the awesome community. Like, there's always someone to help you out with your queries, lots of good packages to make your work easy, and a lot more to explore and learn. I hope you all are having great time learning it during 30 days of Flutter, and keep fluttering. May the Dart be with you.
Hi, my name is Renuka. I'm freelance mobile and web developer, and I'm a founder of Tech Power Girls. The Tech Power Girls is a community to empower the woman, especially the mom, who are having 5+ years of gap in their IT career. We choose Flutter as a tool to empower the woman. Thank you.
Hello, I am Janvi Solanki. I am third year Tech Engineering student from Jarotar University of Science and Technology. I am a developer and programmer. I love coding. I love challenging my logic through competitive coding and real life projects. And after second year, I started with the mobile application development. And I'm little bit confused between the Java and the Flutter. So I have researched about both and I choose Flutter because I have seen many advantage of using Flutter. One of the main advantage it is single code base and other is using Flutter we can make the beautiful apps having beautiful UI. So I prefer Flutter than Android Studio and then I've also done internship on that and I also made projects and I also participated in the one or two hackathon also and I'm happy that I have used Flutter and I'm still learning and I'm trying to add cool stuffs in my app. Thank you.
Hello all, it's Neha Sonone. I am a BE graduate from College of Engineering and Technology from the background of computer science, and here I am going to tell you about my journey, my experience about the Flutter. So talking about myself, actually in my initial days of learning Android app development, actually I started in my final year. It has been a great experience to learning Android app development, which at that time we are a 5-member team. We are working on our final year projects. It is in the Android app, which has been we have to deliver that app to certain company. So basically we tried making a good app, but initially after that we are not that much of satisfied with the UI part of that app. So about the functionality is good, but as I am most in design part, like I'm always curious and fascinated to the design part of my application. So I just started researching and about then it's like kind of time, it takes time to research about the UI UX development. So I just researching about the which is the best technology we can manage to get that beautiful UI on a web as well as a mobile platform. Then I started getting learn about the Flutter. So in the 2020 I first get to know about Flutter, then how to install it, and yeah, so it is a great technology to learn as well because it is having a back of Google, as you know. So it takes me time to learn Flutter because as I'm a initial stage. So first I have stuck with that installation part, but then I started moving forward. I just loving that journey of making apps, building something beautiful in terms of look and feel. So and the best part I would say about Flutter is its a hot reload feature, you know, like it is the most I would say like it is the most important, and we want that feature in our development. Like we want like quick things happen and magic happens to our app, like so I would say like it is Flutter is a technology that can enable a good UI on a platform which is a web, desktop or mobile application. So I would say it is the best technology to learn. And I started learning Flutter in 2020 firstly. So and yeah, I started it like going to widgets. What is widget? And in the Flutter we know everything is widget, actually scaffold, scaffold container and many things. So yeah, this is the great experience I had ever had with this kind of technology, which is a Flutter. Thank you.
more about Flutter. One is the state management techniques, how to check your performance, API call, Firebase queries, and many others. And still there are so many things to learn in Flutter. After that, one is a key point. We have to make sure after learning and practicing, we have to give a demo to some other person. So the topic will be clear to us. So that's the reason I have given a seminar, one in the JDG Saudi Arabia and quick and last in a month of Jan I was a speaker at the Summit. And one more key point as a developer I follow is we have to update our knowledge. Otherwise, it is very difficult for us to survive in the market. This is all about my journey and right currently I'm just enjoying my journey with Flutter. Thank you for all the Flutterista community and special thanks to Kamal for inviting me to share my journey with you all. Thank you. Bye.
Hi, I'm Samia Ashraf. I'm happy and excited to share with you my recent experience with Flutter. I have been working with Flutter for past 1 year now, and a recent hackathon that I participated in changed my perspective about Flutter. With just one programming language, you can build beautiful apps for multiple platforms. That's how incredible and powerful Flutter is. I've built a Things to Do tracker app with Flutter and its excellent UI functionality. Currently, I'm working with Beehive, a full-stack content platform for internet entrepreneurs and businesses where Flutter is part of the development. With that being said, I want to encourage more women to start coding. At present, less than 30% of the developers in this world are women. Coding is not difficult. In fact, coding to me is to explore your creativity and to see how far your mind can think. When you have a good mentor and a great course to start with, I'm sure you'll end up wanting to learn more. In the past, we have made undeniable progress in every field, and I'm sure we'll continue to do so.
Namaste. I'm Akanksha Shivani, core team member of Developer Student Club's KIAT. I'm immensely glad to be part of Flutterista. We introduced Flutter in our campus as there was lack of awareness about this amazing technology. The best way of learning is to teach. So me and my community organized a week-long bootcamp on Flutter, which brought me to work on different projects and gain professional exposure by working through internships and freelancing.
Hi there, this is Sakshi. I am an undergrad student at Vellore Institute of Technology and have been pursuing my bachelor's in information technology. I came across Flutter during the initial months of COVID and haven't regretted making the choice at once. The structure of the framework was so easy to understand that it boosted my confidence in the field of development. I lead the app development team at a club in my university and have been spreading the same vibe among the rest. At last, I would like to say the diversity of the use cases Flutter provides is more than enough to motivate any developer.
Wow, Kamal, that was an amazing compilation. We really do have a vibrant community there in India, and I'm glad you're part of it, Radhika. I think I saw you in that video, didn't I?
Yeah, I was in the first.
Okay, great. I've actually been informed that we've decided a different way for people to sign up. So instead of sending the email, if you would like to sign up, we have a bit.ly link here for you it's bit.ly join Flutteristas. And if you go there and you can answer a few questions, and we will sign you up if you're a female or non-binary and you care about Flutter. So that'd be awesome. And one other piece of house cleaning I would like to do is we've got some great sponsors. Can we show that list again, Simon? All right, great. And these are all people that believe enough in Flutteristas to have wanted to put something in there, and that's awesome. Radhika, what do we have coming up?
Okay, so now we are having.
I can jump in there. It's okay. We're doing a. The next title is called a DIY thermometer with Flutter and Arduino, and Juna's doing a great job on it. And as someone that has, I don't know, probably a dozen Raspberry Pis and Arduinos, and really hasn't used any of them, I'm looking forward to this talk. So,
okay, so here is Juna Salviati, who is co-leader and GDG of Rome.
And let's put her up next. Let's go ahead.
Okay.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Flutterista conference. In this session, we talk about how to realize a Bluetooth do-it-yourself thermometer with Flutter and Arduino. First, if you don't know me yet, I would like to present. I am Juna Salviati, I'm a full-stack developer, but in the free time I do a lot of technical stuffs. If you are interested to know more about my free time projects, you can follow me on Twitter or on my Medium blog. Let's begin by talking a bit about Flutter. Flutter is a toolkit by Google made to develop mobile, web, and desktop applications from a single code base. Currently, using Flutter, you can develop applications for Android, iOS, Windows, macOS, and Linux. Please note that some of the platforms are still in beta. Now, let's talk about Arduino. What is it? Arduino is an open source board with a microcontroller built to easily and rapidly prototype small automation systems. Some examples of things you can make with Arduino are an irrigation system, a system to make a coffee with a tweet, or anything you can imagine. Just to have an idea about what you can do with using an Arduino, I want to show you some of the free time projects I took care of and that you can find on Twitter and in some case on my blog as a part of a series. What we will see is an audio processor implemented with fast Fourier transform. It gets the inputs from the earphones and can understand some frequency to adjust the light as per the input. The device is a Nano 33 BLE Sense, which has audio capabilities and can run TensorFlow Lite models. In the following project, the same Arduino Nano 53 Bluetooth Low Energy Sense is used to run a smart TensorFlow model to recognize boo or hand clapping sound. The device adjusts the light, red for boo, green for clap, as the machine learning model makes an estimation about what has been heard.
Boo!
So maybe you are wondering why Arduino? Well, Arduino is relatively cheap. You can find a lot of boards out there and they are in various price ranges. Additionally, it's very easy to learn and use. In fact, if you are not so good with electronics, but you know something about programming, you can understand how the logic resides mainly in the software instead of in the hardware. For example, you can directly program a timer instead of using a dedicated component like an integrated circuit, a chip. As a consequence, you can also realize complex projects with a small number of components. Now, to complete the overlook on the fabulous Arduino's world, we can see that Arduino is not just one device, but a whole family of devices. Those family offers devices with different capabilities and different price range, of course. Here you can see some device. Arduino Uno is pretty basic and very cheap. Arduino Nano 53 BLE Sense is an upper intermediate device with some interesting sensors and capabilities, for example, the Bluetooth. Portenta H7 is the latest one and also the more powerful. It can run TensorFlow models along with MicroPython and can be equipped with a Vision Shield. So if there are so many Arduino, how can we know about our own or models equipment? It's really easy to discover since the Arduino website reports about sensor equipment and capabilities for each and every model. For example, for our Nano 53 BLE Sense, we can read about the chip and the fact that it's equipped with a 9-axis inertial sensor, a temperature humidity sensor, a pressure sensor, a microphone, a gesture proximity color and light intensity sensor. Getting the name of the sensor is really important because we have to use library to interact with them. And we search for libraries entering the sensor code. Now let's talk a bit about the project. We want to read values from the onboard sensor to get some kind of information, but in other projects we can read the pins to get those information too. Optionally, in a project, we want to write values to pin to induce some action. Before proceeding, please note that this way of doing things can be okay for not sensitive data, but should be definitely reviewed for sensitive data. Also, before proceeding, we have to configure the environment, and precisely we have to install the Arduino IDE, which is the application which makes us write code for the values board, install the board drivers to ensure the communication with Arduino itself, install the libraries to interact with the onboard sensors. Arduino IDE is freely downloadable from the manufacturer sites. It comes in many flavors, as well as a software in the cloud. Of course, Arduino IDE is not only the software to program Arduino's boards. Visual Studio has plugins too, but remember that you have to use Arduino IDE to install boards and drivers anyway. We can install board driver from the board manager by searching the board using its name. Also, we can install the required sensor library searching for the sensor code. As you can see from the images in the slide, we want to install libraries to communicate with temperature humidity sensor, which is HTS221, and to communicate with Bluetooth Low Energy, with Arduino Bluetooth Low Energy library. When the board has been added, when you plug in the board into USB, Arduino IDE recognizes it as plugged, and you can choose its port to enable the communication. But how do we program Arduino? We use a set of C functions in a file called Arduino Sketch. As you can see here, the sketch body is built up of two functions. Setup, a function which is called once when the device starts, and loop, a function running continuously when the device is powered. Let's examine an example. In the sketch, we like the onboard LED. The onboard LED is identified with pin number 22. In the setup function, we set the pin as output, stating that we are going to write values to that pin. In the loop function instead, we set the pin to high and low with a delay of 1 second between the two operations. Setting the pin to high makes the pin lights up, setting it to low, just power it off. Since we want to use Bluetooth Low Energy, we should know when to adopt it. Bluetooth is a streaming data protocol made for continuous streaming, which leads to power consumption and high costs. Bluetooth Low Energy is a protocol to stream small amount of data in a long time range instead. It can count on consumption optimization and cost optimization as well. Bluetooth Low Energy communication is similar to client-server communication. We can think about Arduino, the Bluetooth Low Energy peripheral, as a server, and the mobile phone, the central device, as a client. While devices can connect to multiple peripherals, a peripheral can only connect to one central. Bluetooth Low Energy characteristics describe values that can be received from a device. They are collected in a lookup table and identified by a UID. In this page, we can now see some examples, for example, age. Of course, it can be also temperature and humidity. A service is just a logical collection of characteristics. Here is reported an excerpt from the Bluetooth Low Energy specification page. Environmental sensing is the service including temperature and humidity. So what do we need to do in order to broadcast the temperature and humidity values with an Arduino board? First, we have to publish the device name. It can be a name we like. Then we have to publish a service as a logical container for the values. And last, we need to publish the characteristics for the temperature. In our Arduino sketch, we define the Bluetooth Low Energy service temp service with its UID. Then we define the temperature characteristic with its UID, and we specify that this characteristic can be read and can notify the device on change. In the setup method, we initialize the serial to have some output to debug values. Then we initialize the HTS sensor library and we initialize the Bluetooth Low Energy communication. In the sketch, the first while construct will prevent the program from progressing until we open the serial monitor in the IDE. This is done mainly for debugging purposes. Here, we set the local name to be broadcasted to identify the board as Nano53 BLE Sense and set the service at advertised. We add the temperature characteristic to the service and begin to advertise the service itself. In the loop function, we continuously wait for a device to connect, and when it connects, we stream the temperature at fixed intervals of times. We keep track of the device connection status by print messages. In order to have the temperature value available in our Flutter application, we have to import a package to enable Bluetooth Low Energy communication, search for the device Nano53 BLE Sense, read the service from the device, and read the characteristics in the service. For this project, we are going to use the Flutter Reactive BLE, a very popular BLE plugin for Flutter. We can find this plugin in the community plugin site, pub.dev. A note on platform compatibility. On pub.dev, in every plugin space, platform compatibility is reported. You should always take note of the supported platform before beginning the development of your app. We also include the package added in the pubspec.yml file. Here, I also included Google Phone package just to spice up the interface a bit and provider to be used as a state manager. Then we proceed to define a basic UI for the thermometer. It's made up from a decorated container with a text inside displaying the temperature. In this code snippet, I omitted some detail about the gradient definition and the text font styling just to fit the space in the slide. The plugin initialization is done in the main function. Since we are going to use provider to update the interface and to perform the communication, we pass the Flutter Reactive Bluetooth Low Energy object to a class which actually does the work, the Bluetooth Low Energy Manager. It's okay to put the change notifier provide here, since the application only has the main interface as a child. Even if it's still okay to use a multi-provider, it's quite overkill, since there is only one change notifier provider. And this can be reduced to a single change notifier provider without some further issues. In the connection manager, we receive the Flutter Reactive Bluetooth Low Energy object and call the function which connects to the device. We also need a subscription to discover the device and one to manage the connection. This manager is also a change notifier so that the main interface can listen to change happening in this class and update its content as a consequence of those changes. In the connection method, we scan for devices and search for Nano53 Bluetooth Low Energy Sense. This is the name we gave to the device when we programmed the Arduino board. If we find it, we have to handle the connection in order to search for environmental services and then for temperature characteristics. So when we find the device, we connect to it and subscribe to the characteristic we want to receive the data from using the service UID and the characteristics UID. Characteristic subscription ensure real-time update from the device. We use provider to update the interface and show the temperature. The disconnect method cancels the subscription and the connection. Now let's go further by testing the application. In order to test the application, you have to activate Bluetooth and location on your mobile phone. That's because we didn't implement a mechanism just to require permission for those things. So we have to enable it manually. And this is the final result. In this video, I launched the application and I'm actually blowing on Arduino just to make the temperature rise. And you can see that the value updates in real time with the subscription. With the same Arduino sensor, we can also take the room humidity. We just have to adjust the Arduino sketch to read the humidity value from the sensor and to send it. In the Flutter application, we add the line of code to read the humidity characteristic from the environmental sensing service, just like we did for the temperature. And we only have to be careful to specify the right UID for these characteristics. In the main UI interface, we had the humidity message in a column just to display it. Okay, and this is the final result. Here we have a screen with the temperature and humidity. Remember that humidity is always displayed as a percentage. It's not an absolute value. Now, what about debugging? Well, we can have two sources of issues here. One is the Flutter application, and we have some nice tools here to debug, the debugger, the print statement, and the other is the Arduino sketch. Surely we can debug the Arduino sketch with the serial.println, but we can ensure the Bluetooth broadcast is up and running without Bluetooth scanner. On the store, there are many Bluetooth scanners, but I use this one. When we fire it up, we can see a list of Bluetooth devices which are around and that have been detected. Clicking on our Nano 33 Blia license, we can see a list of service and characteristics with the UID. Of course, if the device is not present in the list or some service or characteristics is missing, then something is definitely wrong with our Arduino sketch and we have to review it and to fix it. Serial.println is useful to debug some basic operation like device connection anyway, so you can totally use it. Before closing the talk, I would like to give you some resource pages. The first one is the source code of the application plus the Arduino sketch. It's on my GitHub page and it's on the subscription branch. The second one is a post I wrote on my Medium about this project, and the code here is a little bit updated, but you can follow the tutorial and then readapt the code with the slides. If you want to know more about Dart, here is a list of resources. The first one is the link to the Dart language page. The second and the third one are the link to the tutorials. Here is a list of documents about Flutteristas, the Flutter page along with the Flutter repository, and the last two links are about Flutter understanding, samples, and cookbooks. Last, let's get in touch even after the conference. Flutteristas are waiting for you on YouTube and Twitter, so you can always remain updated about Flutteristas' latest activities. GDG Rome is the group I'm co-leading. If you want to, you can follow us on Meetup and the GDG platform. We meet every 2 weeks, and currently we are organizing activities related to cloud computing. So we are happy to have you there too. And if you are interested in Flutter and you are an Italian speaker, don't forget to follow Flutter Italia developers on Telegram. It's an Italian community about Flutter, of course, and we are waiting for you there also. Thank you very much for listening. I'm waiting for your question and have a nice day. Goodbye.
Oh, thank you, Juna. That was amazing. I love the diversity of experiences we're having from our different Flutteristas coming in. And that's not something I necessarily think of doing with Arduino. Like I said, although I have several. What did you think, Radhika?
Do you have some experience with Arduino?
I
Did you
do
make
actually,
some project with it?
but nothing in Flutter and nothing in a while actually. So it's been
Oh.
it's been a while, and I need to get inspired with that. That is incredible. Our next speaker needs no introduction, but Radhika, could you introduce Pooja for us?
Yeah. So next coming up is Pooja Bhaumik with a talk on widget testing for dummies. She has been an amazing person in the community, and she's also GDE for Flutter. So now let's together invite Pooja Bhaumik on the stage. So you can start.
Hey, welcome back to my talk, Widget Testing for Dummies. I am Pooja Bhaumik and I am a senior product engineer at Creator Stack, where we're building tools and platforms for content creators for their creative businesses. I'm also a co-founder of Women Droid, where we women come together and discuss and have workshops on technical skills, soft skills, personality development, etc. And also I'm a Google developer expert on Flutter, and today I'm going to be talking about widget testing for dummies. But before that, raise your hands if you test. And I don't do much testing myself. I'm not that fluent in tests either, because I am a dummy myself. I'm learning it, kind of getting the hang of it, and trying to add test cases to whatever project that I am working on. Now the question you might ask, why widget test and not unit test or integration testing? Well, unit test or integration testing are pretty much going to be similar to whatever languages or frameworks that you're coming from. And I found widget testing very special and unique to Flutter. And so I kind of dug deeper and wanted to learn more about widget testing. So you probably might ask, do you really need to test UI? Let me tell you an incident that happened back in US in 2018, which was this message: an emergency alert, a ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii. It was sent to the entire state of Hawaii. This was kind of sent by mistake. And after the mishap, everyone started making a lot of memes on it. People started guessing predicting how bad the design must have been, that that they could have even have this kind of mistake. And people started discussing why bad design is catastrophic, but most importantly, design should be tested. Now let's watch sample prediction of how the software could have been, and that was used by the government to send the alert. Watch this carefully. Yeah, that kind of happened. And that is why good design is important, but also important that good design should be tested, so you're not causing panic in the entire state of your country. So yes, testing is important. It's as important as tasting food before you give it to your customers or whatever. And do you know what is the most easiest type of recipe in the world that is also the most easiest to mess up? For all my Indian friends out here, it's chai, and all my friends abroad, it's tea. So it's very simple recipe. It's like 1 cup of water, 3.4 cup of milk, 2 teaspoon of tea leaves and powder, and 1 teaspoon sugar or whatever on your preference. And it's a pretty easy kind of recipe. It's also very easy to mess up because it's that easy. And I thought, why not kind of learn testing while trying to make the best tea in the world? So I kind of made a small app where I kind of had like text fields where, okay, this is the amount of tea, amount of ingredients value should be, and let's test or taste or whatever to see if the right amount is being in that tea or not. So before we begin and start testing this tea app, I just wanted to show you how the app actually looks like. So this is the app, and you kind of have like 2 buttons here. This is a recipe list. So here you could probably have many other recipes, like suppose tasting biryani. So basically tea is one recipe, like longer boiled tea is another recipe for our for just today. Let's assume that. And when you click on tea, it's basically like, hey, I'm gonna have like 1 cup water, 0 cup milk, and 1 teaspoon of tea powder. Sugar 0, I don't want sugar. And if I boil it, I'm probably gonna get black tea. Now if I give 3.4 cup of milk, I probably should get a perfect milk tea. And sugar is on preference, so it kind of does not matter. So at the same time, there's like, if you want to like boil tea for longer time, you just like boil, and it's going to like wait for 5 seconds and then say that, hey, you have a perfect milk tea. It's kind of not working right now. I just have to rerun it right now. So now I just have to rerun this. So while we are running this, basically this is the app that's going to be, that we are going to kind of like test the test cases, the use cases here. So if you see here, I don't know what is wrong with it. So yeah, once you actually have 1 cup of water, I am guessing this is probably because of other resources that I'm using in the laptop, but yeah, 1 cup of water and 1 teaspoon tea powder, and we are going to try to test and see if it's a perfect black tea. So it's going to take 5 seconds and then show that, hey, perfect black tea. So that kind of works now. Now we kind of have to start with the first test, which is verify if the recipe tea is present in the list of recipes. As I mentioned, this is our list of recipes. So here we need to test if tea is present here or not. Now there are ways you could do it, like, hey, you can find by the word tea, like the string comparison can happen with the word tea, and also, or you can give it a unique identifier, this button, and say that, hey, you can find also by the unique identifier. Now you might be a little like what gibberish I'm actually talking about. You have probably no idea how tests even look like. So I know that was a lot, and maybe the question that you might have is that, let's do some basics maybe. And the question that you might have, how much of basics should you learn for writing your first test? Well, my answer is that enough information to write your first test. Like, you should not have to like go through articles and books and like podcasts or whatever just to learn to write your first test. It's just have to be enough information to just do what you are required to do in your test. And in my case, you might ask that, hey, do I need any special library? In your case, probably you just need Flutter_test, and it's probably already there in your dev dependencies. So I guess that's sorted. And where do I write my test code in Flutter? Now the question's answer would be that, hey, you have this test, you have your project folder. Here you're probably going to find this test folder, which probably already has a widget_test.dart file. It's going to have the test for the counter app, which is by default an app that you get once you create a project in Flutter. Now that all you know, how does a test look like? So it's kind of like this method, and like all Flutter applications, we need where the entry point is always a void main. For your test, the entry point is also a void main. So you're going to have this method inside your void main. You're probably going to want to like give it a name, or what are you actually wanting to test. In this case, it's a dummy test, so yeah, nothing. And also like a callback here, which basically saying that what is the test include of, like what are you going to do in your test. Now in this case, there's nothing. But let's see, the first thing that we'll have to do is that, hey, let Flutter know what widget you're going to test and render that test render that widget on the UI. So here I have said, hey, this is for my dummy test, and in that I kind of want to pump this widget. Which is probably my recipe list widget. Now the question that you might ask that, hey, you want to render your recipe list widget right here, why do you need a material app widget? That's a very good question. Let's try it out. So let's go to our test file, and if you see, there is something called test pump widget material app blah 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 already there. I probably only want to test my recipe list, so I think kind of don't need all of it. So can I run my test with just recipe list? Okay, the tests have failed, and the reason given is that media query.off is kind of called with a context that does not contain a media query. No media query ancestor could be found starting from the blah blah blah. So I guess it needs a media query. So can I just give it a media query? So media query here, and it kind of needs a required parameter, which is media query data. So here I'm just going to give it an empty one, and let's try to run this test and see if this passes. It still failed, but there's a different reason saying that no directionality widget found. Scaffold widgets require a directionality widget ancestor. Okay, so it needs a directionality widget. Let me give that then. So directionality widget. It also has a required parameter, which is probably my text direction R or LTR. Alright. So now if I run this test, I hope this passes. So this has passed, and that's all we kind of needed. We needed a directionality widget, we needed a media query widget just to run our actual widget. And that is why I kind of need a material app widget, because all of this is already available in a material app. So if you just remove all of that and probably just give it a material app, then I think in a way you don't need anything else. You probably just need it to give it a home, and that's all. It should work again. So kind of like reducing the nested widget thing here. So this should run. I hope it passes. It passed, right? Nice. So now that you have answered the question why we need a material app, that's answered. Now let's go back to our test, which is verify if recipe T is present in the list of recipes. Now we said that we can find it by the string comparison, or we can find it by a unique identifier. So let's see what we can do. Now here, if you see that we have already this. Now the question is that you're saying that, hey, I have an expectation of finding something with the text T, and there should only be one widget available for, not like more than one or less than one. There should be only one widget available. So your expectation is to find something with the text T and one widget available. And this expectation needs to be passed so the test can pass. And of course, if you try this out, if you try to run this is going to find a T because there is something here. Now if something here would have been T or whatever, this probably would have failed. So if you try this, this is going to fail because there is no value or string comparison for T or whatever. So yeah, exactly 0 widgets with text T whatever. So now if you take this back and okay, this is going to pass, that's great. Now if you say that, hey, I have a unique identifier. If you go and see the actual recipe list, here you have actually recipe button is like given, hey, the this is the key value and this is the actual string that you see here, and then T2 is the key value and this is the actual string again here. So it's basically passed to this recipe button, and if you see the super constructor, the key is now passed here. Now basically this recipe button now has a unique identifier. You can just say that, hey, I have an expectation that there is probably going to be a unique identifier or the key by the value T, and there's going to be only one widget available. So can you find that, please? And it's probably going to find your widget here, and probably this test is also going to pass. And it passed, so that's going great. Now let's go to the test number 2. Verify all the ingredients for T is 0. Now when you run the app, the ingredients are all going to be 0 because you have not filled out the text fields. So the first here is that, hey, I need like an identifier for my water text field, I need an identifier for my milk text field, I need an identifier for my tea powder text field, I need an identifier for my sugar text field. I also need an identifier for my boil button, but here all of them were actually found by key. We had given a key to each of the text field, but here for the boil button I said like, hey, can you find a widget that has a text boil on it? And here you probably have to say that, hey, what type of widget are you talking about? Like, oh, elevated button? Sure. And what is the text on it? Boil? Sure. So basically you're saying that, hey, widget with text is elevated button with the text boil on it. And you're going to find the boil button as well. Now you expect, so there are expectations here for the text. So here if you see the name of the test is check if T ingredients are all 0. Now the expectation is that, hey, I have my water text field, there should be only one water text field and the value should be 0. Hey, I also expect my milk field should be also just 1 and the value should be 0, and similarly for tea powder and sugar field. Once the expectation, we are probably going to run and see if the expectations are passed or not. And I hope this passes. It has passed. These are all expected as 0 and the expectations are all right. Now the thing is that next thing would be to see like if you see it here, probably all our kind of test is going to need the text fields here and the boil button. Am I going to write this down every time? Probably not. And there are so many tests that have actually like 9 tests that I want to do for this app or this recipe tea. If I do this every time, I probably like just repetitive code and just like unreadable code. So can I just group this somewhere? Yes, you can have a group of tests that are probably kind of doing or working towards the same goal. So here you probably have like a group where you probably name the group that, hey, that entire group of tests are to verify if this is the best tea in the world or not. And there are few methods that come handy with a group, which is setup, tear down, setup all, and tear down all. Now if now the thing is that setup is called before each test is run in your group. So you basically, if your group has 10 tests, then each 10 tests are first going to call the setup method and then run your test. Tear down is basically called after each test is run. Setup all is like run one time. This is like one time configuration for setting up something before all the tests, all like that 8-10 tests that you have are run. So this is like one time setup. And tear down all is also like one time destruction that you need to do after all your tests are done. So in this case, we're kind of just going to use setup all or even like setup box kind of thing. But inside the setup, I'm going to like probably like find all the identifiers for water, milk, tea powder, sugar and boil button, and I'm going to keep it handy, and later I just have to like reference them, and now I don't need to have these stupid code, repetitive code here. I just need to like put my expectations on the test, and that's all I have to do. All the repetitive work is now grouped here. So you can have all your new tests, whatever you have, inside this group, and they all can access these fields and these finders or whatever. So now let's see what is the next test. So verify if tea is black tea. So if you understand how tea is made, is basically like if you want a black tea, you probably don't need milk. So milk is going to be 0. So we just have to like verify if like the like water text field is 1 and the tea powder field is 1. So and then we have to like tap on the boil button and see if the text black tea is ready is coming up in the UI or not. So basically just I have to check, hey, expect that I need a water text field that there's only just one water text field that should be present in the UI. And okay, by the way, sorry, I forgot, but before that we need to pump this widget tea recipe, which is this screen, and say that, hey, can you render tea recipe widget, because I'm going to start testing this widget right now. So, and your first expectation is that there should be only one water field, and you're saying that, hey, can I tap on the water field? And then you're like, yeah, sure. The pump is basically saying, can you refresh the screen, because I just tapped on like an interactive widget, so can you refresh the screen? Like, sure. Then can you also enter text where the value is 1 for the water text field? And you don't have an expectation right now. You just do the same thing for tea powder, where you kind of see, hey, I expect there's one widget for tea powder. Can you tap on the tea powder? Can you refresh, pump the widget? And can you also enter text as 1 again, because that's the value that I need. Now, hey, remember the boil button that I have? Can you tap on the boil button as well and also refresh the screen again? Once that, basically the logic is going to start applying, where it's going to calculate what this tea is. And my expectation is that I'm going to find this value black tea ready in the UI. So now all of this, I should be expecting this in the UI. So can you also let me know if you're finding this black tea ready value in, and there's only should be only one widget available with that. And if you try this test case, it's probably should work. And the test should pass. That's amazing. So verify if tea is black tea works. Now verify the visibility of the output message. If you remember, here there was an output message here, black tea ready. Now if you remember, initially there was no message, and suddenly there was one. So basically we have to like test, hey, initially I should find no widget with this text or like any text, and later after few action I should find this widget. So this entire widget should not be in the widget tree, and then suddenly after few action it should be there. So to check the visibility, to test it, we are going to pump this tea recipe widget, which is fine. And I'm also going to find this widget by the key. So the key value given to it is output, and I'm going to say that, hey, my expectation is that output should not be there. So I should find nothing here with the key output. And then I'm going to like expect that, hey, water field 1, tea powder field 1. I tap on the boil button once the calculation happens for black tea, and I pump and refresh, my expectation is that now I should find output widget. Like now there should be a black tea ready thing. So the expectation is that nothing and then something, or like one widget. If you run this, you're probably going to find this test also is passing. Now here, if I kind of say find like nothing, this is probably going, the test is probably going to fail here. So let's just check if the test is going to fail here or not. Yeah, the test is going to fail. Yes. So that is amazing, that has failed, because yeah, it is finding that output message there now. So that's amazing. We can now verify the visibility of the output message. The test number, next test is the verify if it is a perfect milk tea. Basically, we're now also going to add the milk, but sugar is based on preference, because I like to a spoon of sugar. Some people like one, some people like none. So let's see how can we make sure the test passes even with this variety of preferences that with sugar. So we are going to pump this widget again, tea recipe, and we expect that water is again going to be 1. I am going to give enter text water actual. Basically these are the constants that I've already set, where if you see here the constants are already set as water actual 1, milk actual 3.4, tea powder actual is 1, and sugar actual is 1 in a way. So in my widget test I'm expecting water should be 1, tea powder should also be equal to the actual, milk should also be equal to the actual, but here also I'm expecting, hey, can you also find sugar field? And I also expect sugar should be also be equal to the actual. But the question is that there's something called skip here. Now let's see what this is. Before, I probably just want to run this with the actual, but can you notice here I actually did not enter any text in the sugar field. In a way it should probably remain as 0. In a way this test is supposed to fail because 0 is not equal to 1 here. So let's see if the test actually fails. Yeah, this test has failed. It expected 1 but actual is 0. Now the test is failed just because of sugar, but sugar is based on preferences. Why should I even care? And that's when the skip comes into the picture. Basically, if you give the skip as true, it's going to just skip that one expectation and let other expectations run the test. In a way, if other expectations have passed, for that one expectation it's not going to fail the entire test. And also if you give it a string value, it is also considering as true and just probably also associating a reason with it. So sugar is skipped because it depends on preference. So in this case, if everything passes here, only sugar is a problem, it's kind of going to be like, hey, everything is fine in a way, it's just the sugar. So like, yeah, we can pass the test because we can skip it. We can skip this expectation. And now the test has passed, which is, it is a perfect milk tea. It's able to find that text on the perfect milk tea text, and there's one widget. So it's working perfectly if I just don't care about the sugar part of the things. Next is that we see verify if tea is black and boiled properly. Okay, I have like few cats and dogs crying, but yeah. The next is that what we are probably going to do is that, that loader thing is we're going to test a future call. So the future call here, probably that's why we have the second one where we boil tea longer. I kind of are going to, it's going to like wait for 5 seconds and start showing the value here. So verify if tea is black tea and boiled properly. So now you're going to pump this second screen, which is long boil screen, with tea recipe with long boil. And the same thing, you're just going to find a water text field as 1. You're going to give the enter text as 1. Tea powder, enter text as 1. Now you're going to tap on the boil button. Initially we were doing just pump, and if you just run this test is going to fail probably. Yes, it failed because it could not find this black tea ready. This is because immediately when it tried to refresh the screen and try to find that answer black tea ready text, it could not find it because I was kind of delaying this feature. I was trying to delay this call by 5 seconds, and it did not kind of wait for this 5 seconds to find the widget or the output message. So pump kind of does not work here, and that's why we have something like pump and settle for such future calls, which is happening in the future. And it's kind of saying that, hey, but the frame is kind of rendering constantly. Once it kind of settles down, once things have settled down, can you then refresh the screen, and maybe you're gonna find the expectation more, the expectation is probably going to happen at that moment rather than when the frame is constantly changing. So it kind of say that, hey, for 5 seconds it's kind of gonna wait, and now then it's going to settle down, and then expect if there is a text called black tea ready or not. Now if you say pump and settle, it's probably going to run the test and see this is probably going to pass as well. And the test has passed. So the next widget is basically, the test is verify if the app works in a smaller screen. Now it kind of like, it's just like, hey, check if tea is black tea in a smaller screen. What I'm going to do is like, I'm going to like make the screen even smaller, and probably I will not be able to reach the boil button if it's like, half the screen that you see currently. And I'm going to see if this works, the test kind of works. Even if the UI is kind of like cut off, is the test going to work or not? So you kind of like can understand some visibility test cases here. So if I make the width as 100 and I know that the width is not 100, this is much more than that, we're probably going to have this test failed. So I'm kind of like setting the physical size here and saying like, hey, you want to test everything here under this size, special size that I have mentioned here. So it's saying kind of like render flex overflowed by 154 pixels. Of course, the render flex overflows. Here, if I make this 500 back to 500, the test is going to pass again. And it is passed. The black tea is ready. It's able to access the widgets and kind of saying that, hey, I don't think so your tea can be made in smaller screens like this. If your it is not like, the UI is not made for it yet. It's not that responsive. So the next thing that we can test is that verify if recipe name tea is inside a recipe button widget. Now here the difference between the first test is that we were saying that, hey, there are recipe buttons, is one of them having the word tea on it? But here what we're saying that, hey, is there a parent of tea that's a recipe button type? So kind of like doing the opposite of it now. So here what you need to test is that you're first going to find here the tea identifier the tea. So you're going to like find it by text itself. And you're also going to find the recipe button, which is going to find it by type. And the type is recipe button, which is your widget class. And you're going to say that, hey, I just want to find the ancestor, like, the parent of tea. And the parent of tea should match recipe button widget class. So basically you're just kind of finding the answers, the parent of C, and trying to say that the parent should not be anything but a recipe button. So can you find that, please? And there should only be one widget like that. So once you run this, it's going to probably pass. And it has. Yay! So that was all the tests that we kind of have for today to make sure our tea is perfect. And now in the beginning I asked a question, do you all test? And some of you probably would have said no. And after all the things that you learned today, and to learn how to learn testing, my next question would be, do you want to test? And I hope the answer is yes. So also, if you think I can kind of improve on my talk and how my talk style is, probably you can give me feedback on this, and your feedback kind of helps me improve and make me better at what I do. So thank you so much. And if you want to find me everywhere, I'm recently just joined YouTube and putting some content out there, and I have some content in Medium as well and GitHub as well. And if you want to know more about what I'm doing and what next things that I'm kind of jumping on, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn is all there. So I hope I see you somewhere, and thank you so much for attending and sticking by the talk. So thank you.
Wow, thank you, Pooja. Yes, I need to be able to answer that question with yes. Now, for those of you looking, you may notice that I now have Sarah instead of Radhika with me. And Radhika has gone off to prepare for her talk coming up. But Sarah, you've got something coming up that you want to tell us about, right?
Yes. After Radhika's talk, we will have a live quiz. And in order to do the quiz, you should go get your booking number that you got when you got your ticket. So if you go to the email from when you got your free ticket, there should be a booking number, and please join this quiz with that number. And oh my God.
Live TV.
Yes, and when we start, we'll be ready to go after Radhika's wonderful talk.
All right, great. So after Radhika's finished, I'll bring you back on, and we will start this quiz. People, there are prizes, so make sure you have your ticket ID. And I think you could probably still get a ticket ID if you went to the website and checked it out. But but now we have coming up, and the prizes, by the way, are for everybody. This conference is really for everybody. It's being put on by the Flutteristas, but it really is for everybody. So, please join. Please go in, win our prizes. We would absolutely love that, regardless of whether you're a Flutterista, want to be a Flutterista, or not. So, but given that, and I also want to tell everybody that coming up, it's about an hour before our next break. So we're not really gonna have a break. So, if you're just hanging around waiting for a break to go to the bathroom or something, be prepared. It's another hour or so. And without further ado, here is Radhika with how Flutter became a turning point in my life from zero to hero.
Hey everyone, I'm Radhika Goswami, a Flutter developer, a YouTuber, an instructor at Udemy, and also a speaker of this talk. And I'm so excited to share my journey on how I encountered with Flutter and took a decision to switch from web development to choosing Flutter. And also, it will be a value-packed session where you will get my top tips, guides, and a lot of resources so you can fast-track your Flutter journey. So it all started in the summer holidays, a perfect time when you have a lot of time. In the middle of this choice, my brother was keen on shifting his school. So we were on a deep research of schools. And in this process, we came across multiple school websites. And here we found the best thing. Our own school site that we thought would be wonder was a blunder. It was outdated, uncreative, and less use of technology is clearly visible. Now hearing these criticisms, my brother pointed me out. like, Radhika, why don't you create a website for our school that you like? Now I was like, is this even possible? It is supposed to be some developer's work with years and years of experience, and I am here with no tech knowledge. This was all pointing to something, so my research went on, and after 6 months I have my complete website ready to make a wonder. But unfortunately, that's a different story, that my principal doesn't even have a time to check out my work. He just said, focus on your studies, your exams are coming. So after all these, I just continued my focus on becoming a front-end developer. And now your question is, then how I became a Flutter developer? So it was one fortunate day, which was like every other day, but with some twist. So randomly scrolling through YouTube videos, I came across a Flutter video. This was a different name. I was like, what is this Flutter thing? So curious like anyone, I just clicked on it and watched the entire video. But I put it off thinking like it has no relation with what I am doing. But opportunities knock at the door until you open the gate. So again came my brother with hyper excitement. He was like, Radhika, did you heard about Flutter? It looks something related to your field. And it looks like it's going to be disruptor in the market. Now it felt like another call to me. I took my pen and paper out, sat on the table with multiple questions rushing through my head. Will my months of learning web development be of no use when I'm so close to becoming a certified front-end developer? So I put on a heading, why should I Flutter, and went through multiple YouTube videos, articles searching for my answer. And for my amaze, I got so many reasons to Flutter. Let me share some with you. First one is, I came to know that Flutter is developer friendly, which means if you already have the background of JavaScript, C#, Java, etc., then Dart, which is the programming language that Flutter uses, is very easy to adopt. And let me clarify, if Dart is going to be your very first programming language, then too it's easy to pick up. And the second one is Flutter makes you cross-platform hero. It's like you have 6 infinity stones in your hand, which means one single code base and you have the power to deploy it into 6 platforms, or you have 6 products ready. And now let me sum up quickly, cause you already know it. Like Flutter is fast, supportive community, everything is a widget, and it's powerful for real. So if I have to say, before learning Flutter, every day I was waking but not doing Flutter. And then I found Flutter and every day I was doing Flutter. And now the time has been fast forwarded and I am here in front of you with experience to share something which I call as a little guide to fast track your way to Flutter. So let's start. So the first point that I would like to put on is no need to leave to adopt. Are you in a school, college or in a job? Then you should definitely hear this. It has been a problem. You can say it in real life, or in Quora or YouTube comments. Should I quit my job to pursue this? Should I wait till my schools or colleges are over? Answer is straightforward. You don't need to leave to adopt. So the first skill that you need to learn is consistent focus. I will repeat it again because it is such a game changer. Consistent focus. As in my case, I was just putting 2 to 3 hours from my school life to learning Flutter on a daily basis. When you have something important to focus upon, your overall focus increases. Interesting fact, I have been good at academics majority of my life, but I just became good to better at school after I chose to focus consistently on my learning, even when I was giving less time to academics than I used to give. And now let's talk about Dartpad. When you start with Flutter, you may get overwhelmed seeing the installation process, but you need not to be. There is something called Dartpad, where you can immediately get your hands on the Flutter, and when your interest is piqued up, that's when you can easily go through the installation process. And now let's come to the learning resources. Flutter Cookbook. This cookbook contains recipes that demonstrate how to solve common problems while writing Flutter apps. Each recipe is self-contained and can be used as a reference to help you build up your amazing application. And also try Flutter Code Labs and make sure to follow Flutter's official YouTube channel where expert developers will explain complex topics in simple words. And the next one is stick to a course. YouTube, articles or documentations are really great way to learn, but the content is scattered and can take you a lot of time if you are only dependent on them. So what worked best for me is stick to a particular courses. As in a course, you can find all the content in a place, arranged in a systematic way, so you already know what you should learn next. And if you want my take on courses, then it would be first take a general course that familiarizes you with multiple topics, and then move to deep dive on particular courses like UI, API, Firebase, etc. As courses personally helped me so much, so I have also started to create my own Flutter course which made me instructor at Udemy of 8,500 plus students. And now let's talk about books. There are many great books on Flutter and can be a great learning source for you. And also learning can be a trap. You may think you know it, but it will not always be the case. So don't just watch, but practice and involve in making real life apps. And now let's talk about Flutter community. There will be a time when something will go wrong, when you need feedback on your recent project, or will need that just a motivation push from like-minded people. And that's what communities stand for. And Flutter has always been known for its amazing supportive community. So just go to Discord, Slack, Twitter and join the community and become a part of it. And now last but not the least is upgrading your learning setup. I knowingly kept this point at last. I have been in this place when I have been using Android Studio in my old lagging PC which has low RAM, low storage. And because of that, Flutter's best known fast hot reload will also take half an hour to load. So I slowly switched from PC to laptop and finally shifted to iMac. So I will suggest you, if you can, upgrade your setup to enhance the learning experience. Share what you learn. I have always been a great believer that when you teach, you get to learn it twice. I remember an incident. When I found CSS, I found it interesting, but found it bad when a teacher explained it lightly, thinking it's an additional burden to teach. And that's when I got to learn people energies change the way people look at it. So when I found Flutter amazing, I decided to represent it in the same amazing way. So that when people watch it, they can get the same vibe that it's amazing and feel motivated at the same time. And that's why I started my YouTube channel Divine Coding. Because when you had to teach something to someone, you get to learn it twice. And I really feel fantasized to think about that my learning has helped 100k plus people around the world to learn Flutter with ease. And that has continuously motivated me to continue doing. And I have the same say to you. Share what you learn through articles, video tutorials, or just help other people out in the community get their solution through you. This will help you to challenge your knowledge and get clarity of what you know at the same time. So these are some of my tips and resources to fast track your way to Flutter. So now we have came to the last part of the talk. This is a sequence I found most helpful. Make a goal, forget the goal and focus on the journey. Now when it comes to focusing on the journey, there are two things you need to understand well. It is likely that you may overestimate what you can do in a day. And at the same time, you can underestimate what you can achieve in a month or a year. So don't doubt the journey, trust the progress. And so here's my last call to action. If I can do it, you can do it too. Thank you for listening to me till this point. I'm so humbled to be part of this amazing event. I have put on my number of hours to bring out this talk so that you can get to learn something each minute from this, so that it may also become a turning point in your life too. You can also reach out to me even after this talk at Divine Coding on YouTube and Twitter, and also on LinkedIn at Radhika Goswami. Also one thing that I would do is to go ahead and create a Medium article summarizing the whole talk so you can refer back to it again if you need. Hope you find it helpful. Thank you so much.
Wow, that was absolutely amazing. Thank you, Radhika. And to imagine all of that at only 16 years old. She's told me she's going to be 17 soon, but wow.
She's very impressive. Yes.
Okay, Sarah, why don't we tell people again how to join? I'm going to hop off stage and just let you take over with the quiz.
Thank you very much. So we are doing a Menti quiz. I see that we already have about 80 plus people joining. But if you haven't joined yet, you can go to menti.com and enter the code that you see there at the bottom, as well. I think it's also pinned in the YouTube chat. And if you join with your ticket booking number, then we'll be able to give you prizes at the end. This quiz has 4 prizes associated with it. The first person will get a dash. And after that, then we have 3 copies of Dart Apprentice, I believe, that we're giving away. Yes, Dart Apprentice. So I hope you have fun. This quiz is presented by Flutter Challenge, a new initiative for people to challenge themselves to do Flutter. So let's get started. How do you make a private field or method in Dart? No one's answering? Can people answer? Okay, people answered. It just wasn't appearing for some reason. Okay, great. Then let's move on. In Dart, there is no private keyword. Use an underscore at the beginning of the field or method name. This rule is enforced by the compiler. Which widget allows you to rotate through a list of children to display, one at a time? That's right. So, index stack allows you to easily rotate through children widgets in a list. The index property allows you to select one widget to show in that list. Which widget allows you to build different widgets depending on the result of a given async function? Okay. The future builder takes in a future and a builder. It's very well named. The builder determines the future state using the given snapshot parameter. I think now's a good time to see where people stand. Let's have a look at the leaderboard. All right. Got some competition. Okay, and we'll keep going now. Which keyword lets you delay the initialization of a non-nullable field? The late keyword tells the compiler that the field is non-nullable, but it must be initialized later. This avoids the need to make it nullable, thus saving the need to unwrap it when accessing it. In Dart, it is a compiler error if a field marked with protected is accessed outside of the class hierarchy. I know this one's a little tricky. The linter warns you against usage of protected fields or methods from outside the class. The program will still compile if the warning is ignored. There is no language levels in support in Dart for protected fields. In which position is the first child of a stack always in? Oh dear. I better refresh. Okay. Stack. With stack, widgets that are at a later position in the children's list will cover the ones before them. Both the width and the height must be specified for a size box to take up space. You can specify either width or height of a size box, and it will occupy space along the corresponding axis. Reflection is possible in Dart, but not in Flutter. While Dart supports reflection, Flutter does not because app sizes cannot be easily optimized, as reflection makes tree shaking hard. Instead, Flutter uses code generation to achieve the same. Yes, let's see how people are doing. Lots of competition. Okay. Getting to the end here. Which widget provides snack bar, floating action button, drawer, and bottom navigation bar, among others? Oh. Yes, it is scaffold. It should have been 20 seconds. Scaffold implements the basic material design visual layout structure and gives you access to things such as app bar and floating action button. Which widget allows you to figure out the width and height of its parent widget before you determine how the children will look? Layout Builder gives you access to the box constraints of the parent, making it possible to build responsive layouts. And here's the last one. Sizes go down, constraints go up. True or false? It's the other way around. Constraints go down and sizes go up. So let's see the final results. Dun, 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 dun. Wow, so PQNK1, you will be getting a dash, and then other in places 2, 3, and 4 will get a Dart Apprentice. Mirko, we asked you to put in a ticket number, so I don't know how to contact you. You can message team.flutteristas@gmail.com to tell us. Okay, thank you. Then that's it. That's the quiz. So
great. Thank you for doing a great job there, Sarah.
That was awesome.
I can tell you that I've seen several Flutter insiders now that have thought your quiz was spot on and was great. So you'll probably be hearing from them after this. Yeah, see you later, Sarah. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You'll be back up shortly, and we'll be doing more activities. And I have to say, this next part here is one of my favorites. And there definitely are benefits of being organizers, because Stef said, whatever you do, I want to be there too. So, our next part here is going to be, we're going to have Tim Sneath and Mariam Hasnany from the product management team there at Flutter. And I don't think that anybody needs an introduction here, but can you two go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us who you are?
I guess I'll go for it first, Tim. Okay. It's always hard with these things. Like, who's next? I'm Mariam. I am working on Flutter as a product manager, and I focus on the web.
And hi, I'm Tim. I also look after Flutter and Dart's the programming language.
Oh, that's amazing. And just so everybody knows, this is a question and answer going on. It's going to be going on for about half an hour. So if you have questions, please enter them in the live chat, and that way we can get them on there and ask your questions for this. So everybody, if you have any questions for either Tim or Mariam, please go ahead and do that. And in the meantime, I've got a few questions I would like to start with. Flutter Engage was amazing, and we know that we're having a virtual I/O coming up. So I guess, how has been the reaction to Flutter Engage and the excitement for I/O?
Yeah, you may need to direct each of these questions to one of us, so we don't have that. Oh,
sorry.
Who's going to talk?
This one's probably a Tim question. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's been just amazing to see. Not just the Flutter Engage reaction itself, but also just the number of different events and community meetups that have happened in the immediate aftermath of the Engage event. I think we had 1 million views of the Flutter Engage content across the various different YouTube channels and other things like that. And so it's just been incredible. We've seen lots of new apps sort of appearing, I think there's been over 50 community events. So it's just been lovely to see the way that everybody has sort of used it to as a kickstart for all kinds of other things. And Mariam, maybe you can talk a little bit about sort of what you've seen on the web since Engage, since that was the stable release for web.
Yeah. I think, well, one, I've been invited to so many Q&As, and it's been really awesome to be able to just continue to talk to the community, because that's what I was hoping for if we had like an in-person, just to meet a lot of you. And from the web perspective, I think we've just seen a lot more users running it and building it. We like check our charts every day and we're like, oh, it's still growing. Should we be nervous? And then our bug count is also just like all these new feature asks, and it's definitely a lot for me to think about. What's next? But I would also say that we've seen a lot of more internal to Google interest, because a lot of teams like external products have been waiting. A lot of Google internal teams have also been waiting for us to just hit that stable milestone and feel ready to start building.
Well, I definitely know that every time we talk, I ask you that very specific question, and everybody else does too. When is web going to be stable? So that was an amazing announcement. And I presume it's too early to know anything about I/O, but is there anything you guys can announce? Tim?
If we announced it now, it wouldn't be an I/O announcement.
Well, I don't mean that. I just meant what's coming up, though.
Yeah, so you'll see a bunch of Flutter content at I/O. Obviously, we have a number of sessions dedicated to Flutter. I can exclusively announce that there'll be one called "What's New in Flutter," and so that implies that there is something new to talk about. We've got some fun demos and various different sort of things relating to Dash that are coming out as well. So I'm excited for it. It's gone so fast, right? We're sort of, we went from Engage straight into I/O, and so the team is just exhausted, but it's going to be fun.
Well, I'll take what I can get. So you all heard it here first. What's new in Flutter will be a talk at I/O. But kind of based on what you were saying there, Mariam, I think a lot of people would be curious. What's a day in your life like there working for the Flutter team?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's changed month over month just because of the progression of web. So I think when I first started, we were just looking into launching beta, and it was just making sure the team was ready. We had our issues in place and resolved, and writing blog posts. I don't think I've ever written a technical blog post. I write food blog posts. So it was very different to go from like talking about what I'm eating to talking about tech. But just being able to write, and honestly, Tim is an excellent writer. And so to have somebody like him just like guide me through it, my first one was awesome. And then, yeah, it's a lot of collaborating, not just with the engineers, but with DevRel and figuring out like what documents do we need out there. It's a lot of working with like UXR, our amazing UXR team that can get access to a lot of you who I can't always like talk to immediately, and just like hearing from them what was needed. We did studies around just figuring out like what is the niche for stable that we should go after, what are the set of features that our early adopters need, and they kind of help drive what we did for stable. So a lot of talking to customers every day, trying to find what's the next thing we should focus on, working with engineers to make sure they know the priorities from a customer perspective, from a user perspective, from making sure everyone's on board. And then I'm trying to think, lots of meetings, but then I think that's just I think that's also because we're just at home. So a lot of people want meetings just to be able to talk to each other. And so it's been a wild ride. It's been so much fun being able to like collaborate with John from our DevRel team and do a talk and come up with like, what are we going to even talk about? What demo are we going to do? And it's very different from any other PM job I've had. It's just so much more fun. And to work with a community like you all, that's been my most favorite part. Every time I talk to you, I feel like I learn so much. I feel like I get so much inspiration. And it feels good to like be amongst you all.
Well, we definitely consider you a Flutterista, Mariam, and I know you've come and talked with us, and that's amazing. But Stef, is there anything that we would coming in on the chat?
Yes, there are several questions. So one of the first ones was, is there or will there be a Google certification for Flutter?
That's a great question. Maybe I'll take that one. We don't have any plans right now for a certification, a formal certification, but we've been starting to think about skills assessment, and the questions just now are just so awesome. I was thinking, gosh, I wish I could get them all right myself, but I can't. So yeah, we're thinking about like ways to help people maybe just sort of assess where are the gaps in their knowledge, so that you can kind of figure out what's to go after. because I think one of the things that people often tell us that they're looking for is like training on specific gaps, and they want to know where their own personal gaps are. Developer certification is kind of weird because, particularly with a product like Flutter, you kind of don't need a certification to prove your knowledge. You can show an app that you've created, right? You can show the things that you've built, but it's often really useful to know. Okay, I've done a little sort of a test, and I've discovered I don't know much about animation, but I know a ton about the widget catalog, say, or something like that. So to be able to kind of drill in and share some things like that, that's something we are thinking about. And maybe with Sarah, since she's got some great questions to ask.
Yeah. By the way, Sarah, Tim was one of the ones that told me it was great questions.
Yeah, totally. Another question we have is stable Android Studio and emulator for M1. Any ideas?
Yeah, I guess I can take this one also. There's a wiki page that we've been trying to update on current status for Apple Silicon. We fully support Apple Silicon devices for running and developing, but there are some. It's more than just Flutter, of course. It's also this ecosystem. It's Android Studio. It's Visual Studio Code. It's the Android SDK. And so we're tracking a few issues there. The Android Studio piece specifically is a question for JetBrains, who builds the IntelliJ plugin, and I think they're getting pretty close at this point. I forget the exact details as of today, but they're definitely making good progress, and they have. We certainly have a beta quality emulator as well that is native to M1, but everything runs just using the Rosetta emulation if you don't have a natively compiled M1 emulator. So there's no actual obstacles here, but there's some opportunities for performance improvement.
Awesome. There have been a lot of questions about the iOS jank. Is there anything you want to share about that? I'm sorry, there's a ton.
Mariam, shall I put you on the front for this? I'm just waiting for the panic look on Mariam's face. Performance is a journey for Flutter. It has been since the beginning. One of our kind of core principles is that we believe that Flutter needs to be native performance from start to finish. We've been targeting 60 frames per second since the very beginning, and now it's more common to target 120 frames per second with the most modern displays. Jank is a word describing those times where your app stutters, where we can't maintain a 60 frames per second rate. And there are many different causes for jank. One common cause is that your app is synchronously waiting on some kind of response, right? It's waiting on a server response, or it's initializing a bunch of data, or something like that. And sometimes the jank can be from the engine itself, the framework. And so one of the areas that we've been working on right now, particularly since the move to Metal, has been improving the warm-up of the shaders that underpin Flutter. And you occasionally see this in certain categories where your app starts with a lot of heavy animation before it's had a chance to properly warm up. There are ways around that. You can pre-warm some of the shaders. You can use an off-screen buffer during a splash screen. There's all kinds of mitigations. And so before jumping into kind of like an assumption that it's a Flutter engine problem, probably the best thing to do is to use the dev tools and take a look at the performance of the app. We've done a bunch of customer meetings where we've walked through jank with different customers, and I'm going to say very abstractly, it's like 50-50 whether there are issues that are on our side or relating to just the way that the Flutter code is written. And so we're working on the ones that are on our side. There's a project, Flutter Project 188, if you care to look at the number, and that lists some of the examples where we've managed to get a working repro of jank on our side. We're also working on a few specific areas with the Skier team, who are doing some work to or to adjust how shaders are built on Metal, and some of that work should be coming on stream pretty soon. So yeah, check that Project 188 is the place to check. And if you have an issue and you've been through the dev tools and you've been unable to kind of resolve it on your side, please let us know. We'd love to see repros, because they're not all the same issue. When you see jank, it's often relating to different aspects of the engine.
Awesome, thank you. So another one, and you kind of had a segue in there. How does the Flutter team decide what to prioritize?
Mariam, I reckon you should talk about this because I think it's kind of clearly relating to different projects and tasks. So why don't you talk about how you prioritize the web work?
Yeah. So I think at least with web, we started in terms of just like, we had early adopters that we knew that were planning on building with web, regardless of whether it's stable or not, and take it to production with their apps. And so really, we tried to prioritize features that they were requesting, and as well as issues that they were running into as they worked with the build that we had, to really figure out what other users, and just kind of like figure out what we would need to really build to get to stable. And then now that we're out there, it's mostly figuring out what are the big areas that, one, we've announced and we need to still polish. So making sure those are getting the priority. So if there's issues around like accessibility or issues around text and Canvas kit, we're really honing in on there so that we can polish and make sure those are to the stable quality that we're promising. And then also on top of that, now we're trying to see what are getting kind of like the thumbs up on GitHub. What are the things that people really ask about the most, and really figuring out if that fits into where we're going and what is achievable in the next like milestone. And so that's from a web perspective, but I know that Tim can speak more to the rest, but I think we all kind of look for feedback from you all, but also just looking for kind of, we're constantly tracking GitHub. I think it's an open source project, and that's how we let you all know what we're working on. And that's also how we hope to get a lot of your feedback and a lot of the issues that you're running into, so that we can prioritize what's the most important thing to go after and make sure that we resolve right away, or that we add to make it a more full feature set.
One of the questions that's on here is one that I've heard discussed in other forums, and that is, when will it be possible to develop standalone apps for the Apple Watch? And I've also heard Apple TV.
Yeah, so relating to those kinds of devices, there's a little bit of extra complexity relating to the underlying developer, the underlying compiler tool chain. Apple requires that watch and TV apps are compiled with bitcode. We have some bitcode support in the product, but we're currently sort of watching to see whether we have enough to satisfy Apple. They're famously a little bit opaque even to us in terms of what they accept and don't accept. So there's an open question as to whether bitcode with inline assembly, which is how we support bitcode today, is supported or not. I saw a great source project somebody had shared recently of Apple TV support, at least in debug mode with Flutter. And I guess, you know, we'll see if somebody creates an app based off that, and we'll learn ourselves from that.
Awesome. Another question we have, push notifications, local notifications natively in Flutter instead of depending on third-party libraries. Sometimes that can be risky. Any thoughts on that or insight?
Ooh, I don't have anything to say. Mariam, any ideas there?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like, yeah, I'm not sure what to say.
That might be a great one for Eric. I think he's coming up later, right? Okay. Yeah, that's outside of my, I'm sorry, this is outside of my knowledge domain.
No worries. I will capture that so we can talk about that when we talk to Eric.
Okay. But tying into these last couple of questions. I know that when we start deciding what to do with Flutter and where to go with that, how do the early adopters help guide the path that Flutter takes?
That is a great question. So I think really it's the way we did early adopters was we had kind of an EAP that Kevin Moore had set up. And so we were looking for people that were willing to try Flutter web. So I'm speaking from a web perspective. And so when we learned about what they were building, we were able to tell whether it would be kind of a good fit with what we already had and where we knew where we were kind of trying to go. And what we learned a lot from them was more so what were we a good fit for and what were we not a great fit for, in terms of like, if you think about one of our early adopters was Rive, and what we really learned was we were experimenting or thinking about building an engine with WebAssembly, but having Rive as an early adopter really pushed us toward that direction and really took us towards, okay, let's build Canvas Kit. We see a lot of use cases around that. We see the benefits around it in terms of performance and just being able to leverage this really cool technology that the web now has and offer something that Flutter users will love. And so being able to work with them and really figure out all the kinks, and they are great partners in ways of like letting us know when something breaks and then also helping us figure out exactly what they think might be the issue as they're building it. And so just having those kind of partnerships. Another great partnership was with a bunch of other apps like Invoice Ninja. Hillel has been great in giving just feedback and like feature requests and thinking of not just his product, but classes of his product. And so these early adopters really helped us think about what are the big feature sets that we can enable. And also coming from like Flutter mobile to web, we were also looking for users who were trying to bring their mobile apps over to the web to help us understand where is the gap. How do we make it easier to bring that over? And so it was areas like that that really, really helped us. And so we want to keep hearing from you as you're building, because you are now our early, no longer as early, but you're still our adopters, and we want to hear where our gaps are in our journey so that we can make it easier and just simpler to use.
Well, that's amazing. And I love Hillel too. Way back, if you go back in the archives, I was on the boring show with him and Andrew way back in the day. So that was a lot of fun. All right, Stef, do we have more questions from the web?
We have some. For people asking questions, please put a Q, capital Q : so then it's easy for me to find them. There's one that, will Flutter include more design patterns for Windows, Fluent, and Ubuntu? Or
Fluent, yeah.
Yeah. So yes, for sure. We sometimes describe Flutter as the mahogany staircase, and by that what we mean is that every stair on the staircase should be well polished, should be suitable of its own right. So you can separate out the top layer. If you don't like Material or Cupertino design systems, you can just essentially strip that layer off the top and work at the next layer down, the Widgets app layer, and you can build your entirely separate design system. Also, you can extend and expand on that, things like Material pretty well. So Ubuntu, they have their own design system called Yaru. Rather than rewrite Material, they've chosen to build Yaru on top of Material and essentially redesign some of the pieces of Material to work well in a Yaru environment. And so that's coming from Canonical, the people behind Ubuntu. Yeah, thank you for putting the URL up there. For Windows, yeah, there's no. Oh, well, there is a sort of a few different packages. Maybe you guys are better answer this question than I am. There's no formal package from Microsoft yet, although they have, I think, icons. Is that what this package is? I'm not sure, or maybe it's a third-party example of it. But yeah, you can totally create your own custom ones. And I saw, I think this morning, I think it was Chizzy from Flutter Africa has been working on a Mac OS specific design system as well. So lots of different ones there.
There's a question from Mariam. Is there a Flutter web reference book, like the Flutter reference book?
The simple answer would be no. But I think the longer answer is right now I'm actually not sure who wrote the first Flutter reference book, so maybe we can reach out to them. But I think for at least web, we are trying to make sure that the docs we have on flutter.dev are good references. And so I think we're kind of playing catch up in the community. And as they're building, there's questions that come up and we're like, oh, we don't have this in docs. And so we're quickly trying to put up docs where needed. So if you don't see something on flutter.dev that you have a question about and you think would be a really good doc, you can either submit a PR and assign it to me, or you can submit an issue and say that you're looking for docs around this, and we will get on that. And awesome. So that's another way we love early adopter feedback.
That's awesome. Thanks for that information. There's another Flutter web question. What's the state of hot reload for the web?
This is a good one. This is the one I got in the Engage Q&A as well. So I think right now, the current state of Flutter web is that we have hot restart. And the way I would think about hot restart is, or I guess going back to the web, it's always been a really fast production. Web is something you can build and just refresh in the browser and see. The purpose of hot reload when we built Flutter was to be able to kind of give that fast development for mobile development as well. And so I know the biggest difference right now that we have between web and mobile is that hot restart, although you can refresh and have that same fast development, it doesn't keep your state that hot reload does. So I don't have an answer yet of when we will have that, but we'd love to understand really the use case and like the gap between, is it just the state versus stateless that you're missing from hot restart and hot reload, or is there really some gaps between the experience of using hot restart that is not making it as great as mobile, so that we can make sure we build the right thing when we build it for web?
I know Danielle has another question. I know that there are a lot of questions out there. If we haven't asked your question, we will get them and try and get the answers for you. Over to you, Danielle.
Absolutely. And since we're getting close to wrapping up on this part, my question for you all is this is amazing. And the pandemic has done, horrible things to everything. It's changed how we're all working. Shown by the fact that all four of us on camera right now are in 4 different places. But which is amazing that we can do it. I love that. And it's allowed us, the Flutteristas, to put on this conference. When we get things under control, do you think this is going to be a big thing going forward, or do you think we'll go back to having physical events like Flutter Interact and things like that?
I hope so.
Yeah. There's no substitute for meeting people face to face. It really saddens me that I haven't seen any of you for over a year. Even people in my own team I haven't seen outside the confines of like a box in a room. So yeah, I think it's fantastic to have the chance to connect in person. One of the things I've loved about the Flutter event so far is that we've been in a different part of the world each time. We were in London for Flutter Live. We were in New York for Flutter Interact. We were at least partly in my room here in Seattle for Flutter Engage. I dream of being able to continue to take it on tour around the world. So maybe we can do one in Latin America, or we can do one in Africa. That would be fantastic from my point of view. Logistically, maybe challenging, but I just want to again thank you all. I really appreciate. Mariam and I are paid to do this, but so many of you give up your weekends, you give up your evenings to build community around Flutter, and it's it really is quite moving the way that to see people build on the work that we work on. So I just want to thank you all for giving your own time and energy towards this wonderful open source product that has been a source of great fun for all of us.
Well, I cannot say how happy I am that both of you agreed to be on here. As most people know, Nilay is everybody's contact for everything. And I had, when we were starting to talk about our talkers, I sent to her speakers. I had sent to her and said, can we get Tim? Can we get Eric? Mariam. And it was like less than 5 minutes later, and she sent back and said they said yes. So
it was very exciting.
So, yeah, we were doing our own little dance, So if I'm sitting here like an idiot with a grin on my face, it's amazing. So thank you so much for being on here.
Thank you. Sorry, Danielle. We want to thank you for not only attending here, but the support that you give to the Flutter community, that you give to the Flutteristas. Without you and your support, we wouldn't be having this event, let alone where everyone is creating these amazing Flutter apps. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having us. I don't think without you, we would have a community. So honestly, so honored to be here.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both very much. And I'd like to just say thank you. Absolutely. And I want to tell everybody, coming up in a few minutes, we've got Eric Seidel coming on. And so we got Eric Seidel coming up. So put your questions for him in the live chat as well. And in the meantime, if we can bring Eleni up onto stage. Eleni, what have you got prepared for us?
Hello. Yeah, we want to build a beautiful map with all the location of the people are attending our conference. So you can point your camera to the QR code or go to bit.ly flutteristas-location and answer with your city, state, or country. We will add a pin to it answer. And we want to see a lot of things around the world.
Absolutely. So what we're asking people to do is to go there, and you'll enter in, where you are, and we're going to come back later and show everybody where we're all coming from. So that's something we're really looking forward to seeing, and we'll be back in a little bit, with that. Thank you, Eleni. And we're going to show the if you missed it, we'll show the QR code at different times coming up, so that people can still come in and see that. And I have to tell you, I seriously was fangirling when I saw our next guest. Like I said, I asked for him, but wow, it is amazing. And so I think we should get on with it. Let's bring Eric Seidel up on stage. So, all right, so we have this. Eric, hi. Thank you.
Hi.
Clearly I know who you are, and I'm all super stoked that you're here. But why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Eric Seidel. I work at Google. I'm the director of engineering for Flutter. I helped start the project 6.5 years ago, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so in case people missed that, he's the reason why we have Flutter. So, or at least one of the reasons that we have Flutter.
One of the many reasons, but yes.
That's right. But like I had said toward the end of Tim's talk interview there, you also answered very quickly that you're happy to come on here. Can you tell us a little bit about how the Flutteristas factor into the larger Flutter picture?
I mean, the Flutteristas are a wonderful, active part of the Flutter community. I know that it's. I mean, I wasn't around I wasn't involved in the creation of the Flutteristas, but I've certainly watched it grow and done my little part to try and support as much as I can. I know that Nilay sometimes participates. Some of the other women on our team participate, and just so glad to see it happen.
Thank you. Well, and the fact that you're here shows that you Google and Flutter and yourself all value it. So we could not be happier. But I'd like to get on to a little bit of a story here, because everybody's always asks, why Dart? And I think I've heard a rumor that you were not really a fan of Dart when it started out. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, Dart has been here in many stages. I will say very clearly, I'm a huge fan of Dart now, and I do a lot of Dart. But when Dart came on the scene, my job was to work on WebKit or Blink or the rendering part of Chrome. And so the earliest I heard of Dart was in talks about having a second VM inside the Chrome rendering process. And while we were in the middle of trying to reduce memory, that was not a very happy idea. But when my second introduction to Dart as part of Flutter has just been, wonderful and fantastic and amazing, because we didn't start with Dart. Flutter started with JavaScript, and we actually wrote several versions of Flutter, what would become Flutter, in JavaScript before just giving up and deciding we needed a new language, and we found Dart.
Oh, that's amazing, and I think most of us here love Dart, so that we really appreciate that. But that there's a little bit of a bigger question there than I guess is, okay, why did you create Flutter?
Why did we start Flutter? So Flutter came personally out of frustration. Myself and several other engineers on the Chrome team, we had worked for years to try and make the mobile web amazing. And I'm not here to throw shade at the mobile web in any way, shape, or form. The web is fantastic. But we found frustration in trying to replicate Android or iOS experiences on the web. Say, just take the Android calculator and build it on the web. Could it be just as pixel perfect? Or we tried to build Google Calendar on the web and get the parallax scrolling, which I don't know if that's still part of the Google Calendar app, but it was 6 years ago. And we couldn't do it. Couldn't do it without dropping frames here and there. So we worked real hard on trying to make the mobile web amazing, and eventually sort of gave up. Or we pursued a strategy of what if we cut away all the we call them foot guns, the things that you just trip over. Maybe that's the rakes in your yard. Anyways, the things that you trip over on the web, what if we just deleted them all? And so we tried this experiment where we deleted a whole bunch of Chrome, and we made our benchmarks go sometimes 20 times faster. And that was the beginning of Flutter, was just starting with a really stripped down Chrome and see how far we could go. Eventually, we added things to the web, or felt we had to add things to the web. We stopped being the web, lost half our team as a result of that, but started our destiny towards actually building up a new thing from a fresh foundation that would become Flutter.
That's amazing. And I guess one more thing I would like to ask about is, after Flutter Engage, which everybody loved and got a great reaction, thank you for Flutter 2. But the thing I think most people are excited about was the Toyota announcement. Mm-hmm. And we're used to running this on our Android phones or our iPhones, and now the web and desktop and stuff. But embedded doesn't necessarily seem that obvious. Can you tell us a little bit about how the history with Flutter and embedded systems have been?
It's funny, we've been doing embedded for forever, basically, on the Flutter project. So Flutter started in the same building as a project that would become Fuchsia. So something that was doing a whole new operating system. And Flutter very early on was made to work on what would become a new operating system. Similarly, I think one of our very first customers was the Fiber set-top boxes. That never shipped because the Fiber project changed course, or I don't entirely know. But and then there have actually been several other devices, hardware devices and stuff, that have been built inside Google, never seen the light of day, but have used Flutter along their evolution, because we were built not from a framework of let's sit on top of somebody else's controls and move them around, but rather let's start from a CPU, let's start from a GPU and build up. Just like a game would, or just like it would if you were building a UI framework for a new operating system, or for something that didn't have a UI framework already. And so we've long done embedded. I mean, our individual team, like we didn't write code for Toyota, and we didn't write code for any of these various pieces of hardware, but we provide an API. And some people find that API, they run it on things, and we see them do all sorts of fun stuff.
That's amazing. But I guess it's time to kind of say this conference is not me. It's a whole bunch of people. So Steph, can you bring us any questions from out there?
Sure. This was one of the questions earlier. Push notifications and local notifications natively in Flutter. Depending on third-party libraries seems risky. What can you shed a light on for that?
Yeah, some of this is an architectural choice that we made in Flutter. So here again, going back to our history on the web, one of the interesting design choices of the web is that there's a giant API surface. And that API surface is very uneven, from like super low level primitives to like really high level stuff. And one of the things we did in Flutter was we tried to have a very small, low level API surface in the core C++ binary. And then we would build everything else on top of that in the same language that developers would write their experiences with. And that included all of the things that we thought we could do outside of that main C++ binary as a plugin per se, we would do as a plugin. And this included like Android intents. This included like preferences, just everything. I don't think that we've ever, our own personal team, delivered a fantastic notifications experience. It was an early plugin that we built. And I think that there are probably better ones to be built. And I know that we continue to work with the wider Flutter community, because Flutter isn't just 6 people anymore, to build really high quality plugins. So I guess I would expect that the end state here is that we do depend on, quote, a third-party library, but I think that we should depend on a really good one. And there may be a really good one, and I just, I'm not up to date on all the latest, greatest plugins, but I know the Flutter, I think it's the Flutter Plus community, is making nice, extra nice versions of some of the plugins that we originally wrote 5 years ago because we had to.
So another question: some pull requests take months or even years to be reviewed. Would it be possible to increase the Flutter team in order to make these reviews more timely? You may not be able to answer that, but it's one that's out there.
And it's not an accident I made Steph read the questions.
Yeah, she's thrown me under the bus here. It's really hard to pick. Oh, don't forget, everybody watching, put a Q in front of it, because I'm not looking at anything that doesn't start Q:.
So the short answer is that barring pandemics, we are generally hiring, including right now. So we are hiring more people, and we are in fact actually working specifically on this. We have a new lead in charge of our sort of like ecosystem side of the world, and they're trying to work on sort of the review latency some. I can't promise it's going to get super low, but we're trying to bring it down. That said, just adding people, just like we're always living in a resource constrained world, just period. And so it all ends up being a game of priorities. And our highest priorities tend to be sort of the biggest customers, inside Google that we're working with, because they do pay our bills at the end of the day. We work with a bunch of big customers outside, and then we try and do things that sort of only we can do, which is in part, doing some of these reviews. Although as the community gets larger, I love seeing, community members who don't work, people who work on the Flutter project but don't, come to Google every day, reviewing other people from somewhere else in the world who also don't work at Google, who posted that project or posted that batch. So I guess the short answer is we're working on it. I'm sorry the reviews have been so long, but we're trying.
It's not your fault. There's a pandemic, so that
I hope not.
Just real quick, looping back to the last question, I've got a couple of packages to mention. Fluttercommunity.dev is working on things, and there's a package called Flutter Local Notifications that they're working on that should help with the push notifications and Flutter Favorite.
Yeah, and this is exactly how we hoped the system would evolve. That others who know local notifications better than me. I apologize, I didn't mean to speak over you.
No, please, of course, you're allowed to. It's definitely please. I guess that's a great question though. Is how has the pandemic affected Flutter?
All sorts of ways. Obviously, the team has been through a lot, as everyone in the world has been through a lot. And so a lot of it has just been trying to make sure the team is happy and healthy and taking care of themselves and their family and helping us stop the virus. But there's also been good sides too. Like one of the things I've liked, if I'm allowed to say that, liked about us all working from home is that it's sort of leveled the playing field. We're split across 5 offices, in 5 different cities, and it's nice to have all the offices be equidistant for each other. It's also helped continue to increase the sort of online presence of Flutter, as you see through events like this. It's also, I think, helped increase the open source community to some degree, which is also good because we've always, tried to be 100% open source. So I think there are silver linings to the, terribly tragic and amazingly difficult last year that we've been through.
Absolutely. I can't wait till we get over it. And, here's hoping that IO 22 can be in person. Steph, do we have more questions from the community?
We do.
I always put her on the spot. It's kind of a running joke with us.
This has come up a couple of times. So why and how did you decide another language is needed compared to JavaScript? Is there something like Java is created in the same way? Is it something, oh, wow. I'm really sorry. Is it something like Java is created in the same way?
It's an excellent question. And it certainly was not a decision we made lightly. The 2 driving reasons were startup time and predictable performance. And this was particularly on iOS and older iOS devices. Startup time, when we moved off of JavaScript, our startup time was like 12 seconds because JavaScript does not provide an ahead of time compilation solution, or certainly didn't 6 years ago, maybe it does now, to allow us to just have sorted out all of the translations from the JavaScript to the machine code ahead of time to allow us to start up quickly, which we felt was important. If you want to build a really high quality app, you want Google's top apps to ship with this technology eventually, you need to be able to start up in just as fast as any other iOS app can. And then similarly for predictable performance, one of the things that we saw with JavaScript, again, because it did not provide an ahead of time compiled solution, was that sometimes you'd be running an animation and 3 frames in, it would decide to compile something else because you'd never hit that line of code before, and that could stall your animation. So.
Awesome. So another question, add to app for desktop apps. And this is a Flutterista asking it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, I've seen Anna on Twitter, in fact. I don't know what the status of that is. I will tell you that the guidance that I give the desktop team is find a representative customer and get them over the line. That's sort of generally the guidance I give my teams, particularly when they're bringing up something new. Desktop has been very successful, obviously, with Ubuntu and supporting Ubuntu, and that's been a fantastic partnership, and we've loved working with them. Ubuntu is unfortunately not a representative customer, right? Like most customers who are going to use desktop apps don't build their own operating system. So I think the next step for desktop is to get one of those big recognizable applications that you'd seen in the store and figure out what are all the things that they need, and it may very well be added to app. So I don't know what the exact status of that is, but I'm sure it's in the GitHub repository, in the GitHub issues, all few of them, and that could answer the question.
So you were talking about earlier with, here I go again, sorry. Here we go. Let's test the question. Is it possible for people to apply to be an early adopter company for Flutter Web or other, not just web? We've released a beta Flutter Web app and have gotten some customer feedback that would be relevant to your team.
So Mariam, who you just saw, is the woman to reach out to. She runs that program. She's on Twitter. So that would be a venue to start with. My sense is that was mostly, again, about getting a representative early customer over the line. And so that program may be being pared back. regardless, we are always happy to take feedback, particularly from folks who are trying to do big things. So please reach out to me on Twitter if you can't find Mariam, and we'll get you connected.
Great. We had an email question that had come in, and it's from Espen Evanson, and I'm going to paraphrase the question, but basically conversations over the Jank issue have been very heated, and I think they've been I think they were diffused very nicely by you and your team after Engage and things like that. How do those types of things affect your team? You know, the reactions, I guess, is what I'm talking about.
I think that being 100% open source project, or certainly as much as we can be, is difficult for some team members. It's certainly a different experience than you would get at another Google team. I think in general, the experience is positive. We focus on trying to talk to customers, right, and actually solve issues for customers. We intentionally use the word customers, you know, to talk about people who use the Flutter system. And so the Jank issue is funny because we've known about sources of Jank for years, you know, since we started this project with performance as the whole point for years. But I think it bubbled up into sort of the public consciousness when we switched to Metal. And we unfortunately didn't really notice all of the first run regression. Our benchmarks looking back show it clearly, but we, for other reasons, I guess, did not fully grok that. And so, although I think that the Metal issue does not explain all sources of Jank, as I've said, you know, publicly on Reddit and others, Jank, just like exceptions, just like crashes, there's all sorts of sources, and we attempt to provide tools to help you understand. The Metal early onset Jank specific issue is one that we believe is sort of in our purview to solve, and we're working on it. There's, you know, patches in flight as we speak.
Great. Well, we probably have time for another question or two. Steph, do we have one that came in?
Yes, here's one. Is there any place that they can read up on the architecture or system design on Flutter in detail, something similar to the engineering articles by Netflix? Personally, I don't know about the Netflix. Hopefully you can offer some insight there.
So yes, I don't know about this Netflix specific articles, but we actually have a whole bunch of stuff on the architecture. Some of it's kind of dated, but then again, it also hasn't shifted that much in the last 5 years. It used to be linked from the flutter.dev website. I don't know exactly what that URL is, although maybe someone in the back channel knows. Or you can tweet me on Twitter and I can reply. But there's some videos from Ian Hickson and Adam Barth, who are two early engineers on the Flutter project. Ian is the Flutter architect, you know, uberTL these days. And they, in two separate YouTubes, walk through the whole architecture. And I believe those are mostly still valid. And of course, all our design docs are public, so you can read those.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we can do one more question, or at least a quick one, Steph.
Can we create NFT art using Flutter?
I don't know.
People need to.
Okay.
People need to wait on art. We've got Sarah coming up with a whole talk on that, so that's going to be coming up in one of our later parts. Which I guess it's time to say thank you, Eric, so much for being on here. Thank you so much for supporting the Flutteristas. It is so amazing how accessible you are to Flutteristas, but also everybody else. And it's like, what other product do you work on that you can talk to someone that was one of the creators for it? So thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for all the support that you give to the Flutteristas. I'm so glad you all are here.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Eric. Thank you. And everybody, I need you to come around. We're breaking into part two. So part one was the longest, but we're going to start into part two. Steph, you probably need to go get ready for part two.
I gotta go.
And so we're going to show credits, and then well, I'm sorry. First, we need to show the sponsors, because without them, we would be in a lot worse place. So here are the sponsors. They provided wonderful prizes for us and other support. And so thank you to all of them. And anyway, I think that's about it for part one. Here are our credits, and I will look forward to seeing you in part two, and I will see you again in part three. Thank you, everybody.